It was the fall semester of my second year of college. No longer a freshman, I felt I had a pretty strong grasp on campus life. A female friend of mine, who I admit I always had found attractive from high school, had just started, was living in the dorms and often required my services as an experienced sophomore co-ed. One evening, she asked if I wanted to come over to watch a movie on her crappy 12-inch TV. Knowing it meant cuddly on a bed, the only seating for two in the cramped dorm room, I accepted her offer. The movie had ended and curfew was quickly approaching. Due to the dorm's policies on boys after 11, I began to put my shoes in preparation for my departure. That's when she grabbed my shoulder. I instantly saw the look of worry in her eyes and then realized she had seemed off all night long. She finally confided in me. Over the past 2 nights, some guy knocks on my door. He does it so softly that when I finally wake up, I'm not really sure how long he's been there. And he talks, repeats, keeps asking if I'm sleeping and if he can come in. So far I've said nothing. I just lie here with the blankets up to my chin. This goes on for about an hour and then he just stops and is gone. I finally asked my neighbors today if they had heard anything or had a similar experience, and they said no. Now, this is college. I wasn't too worried. There could be any number of explanations. Most likely a prank, maybe even perpetrated by her supposed unknowing neighbors. The dorm was pretty secure. The hallway lights always on, and exterior doors always locked after 11 o'clock. It had to be a prank. But to console my upset friend, I agreed to stay the night in case the events were to reoccur. Much to my dismay, I slept on the floor, but I did sleep. Honestly, I wasn't super concerned. If this did happen again, I would just cowboy up, tell the guy off, and then hopefully spend the rest of the night next to a grateful warm body beneath neon purple bedsheets. I was in deep sleep when a slight tap on my shoulder abruptly awoke me. It took a moment to remember where I was and regain my balance, but shortly after doing so I heard the knocking. But it was really more of a tapping. Very soft, almost gentle. It paused after about every 4 or 5 beats. The only light in the room was the light coming from under the door in the hallway, with the exception of the 2 shadows made by the individual's feet. I looked to my friend, not sure how long she had been awake. As her face came into focus, I began to register her terror. That was the first time this whole thing had actually started to get to me. Then, in my moment of vulnerability, I heard the voice. I quickly shot my attention back to the door. "Are you sleeping, sweetly? Sweetly, are you sleeping? Can I come in? Please let me in." A cold shot up my spine. His voice was soft yet rough. It didn't sound like that of some young student. While talking, he didn't even pause in his rhythmic tap. The taps just kept going over his words, almost muffling them. I quietly stood up and slowly approached the door. I stopped at it to get a better listen. He kept repeating a variation of the same words, sleeping and sweetly, sometimes even mixing up parts of the words like, "Are you sweeping sweetly?" This slurred dialect led me to believe that perhaps this was a drunk who somehow consecutively stumbled his way into the dorm and harassed my friend. After he finished asking for entry once more, I took a warm gulp of air and finally spoke up. "Hey dude, you got the wrong place, why don't you get lost?" The tapping abruptly stopped. There were no words. I instantly wish I had thought of something cooler to say, but it seemed to do the trick. I looked down to the floor. Shadows of his feet still remained. It was probably only a few seconds, but it seemed like a lot longer. Then, one by one, the shadows disappeared as he walked away. I let out a sigh of relief and then looked back to my friend. Seeing that grateful smile and teary eyes made me feel like a badass. It apparently made me walk like one too. As I noticed, I had a bit of a strut as I walked back to her side. As I prepared to return to the floor, she scooted against the wall and pulled open the sheets beside her. I looked at the open spot on the mattress, then back to her. She gave me a cutesy smile and a reassuring nod. I comically jumped in like a kid at the pool on the first day of summer. We both laughed, then nestled in closer. Then the tapping returned. I popped up with a mixed fuel of fear and anger. The shadows had also returned. This jerk just made me go from awesome to punk in less than 2 minutes. I jumped up, rushing the door, shouting as I stomped. "Hey man, I told you to get the heck out of here." I stopped at the door, hand on the knob. No response from the other side. I would have killed for one of those hotel people things, but was honestly too afraid to crack the door open. After a beat, a voice spoke up. "This is the RA. Boys are not allowed on the premises overnight. For the safety of the other girls, you have to leave, or I will report your friend." My friend let out a crap, then jumped up to answer the door. She put on a pair of pajama pants that were under the covers. I grit my teeth in disappointment, realizing that she had at some point in the ordeal slipped them off. She ran up beside me and then opened the door. "Sorry," she said to the RA, then began to explain. "You see, there was this guy who..." The RA interrupted her. "Under no circumstances should a boy stay overnight in the dorm, nor should you sit helplessly in a dangerous situation. Were someone to actually come to you or any other girl's door at night, you should dial 4 on your phone for campus security or report the incident to me. You've been the only one we had to visit multiple times, now get that guy out of here." It turns out the whole thing was some RA's idea of teaching the girls a valuable lesson, and in fact half the girls in the hall had experienced the same incident, aka the RA's boyfriend. Clearly, not only was she breaking the very rules that she was enforcing by letting her boyfriend in at night, but she was doing this bizarre lesson without the knowledge of the school. Later, my friend filed a complaint and the RA was relieved of her duties. To answer the question on everybody's mind, my genitalia never experienced the joys of my friend's crotch, nor fear-induced boning. Sadly, the end. To start this off, I'll tell you that I'm in the phone sex industry as a side job. I love my work. I get to have a glass of wine, turn on my phone, watch Netflix, and wait for a call. I get paid well for what I do, and I get to set my own hours. I love so many of my customers. It's so fun to let people lose their inhibitions and feel confident about themselves sexually. I was recently delighted to discover that my favorite customer lives in the next town over. My new least favorite, well, he lives a little closer than that. Last night I was lying on the couch watching BoJack with my best friend forever / Puppo when my phone rang. I answered and asked the caller how his night was going. I had a couple glasses of wine in me, so the details are a touch hazy, but the basics have me shaken. "This is your perverted neighbor," he said in a husky voice. "Oh, okay." I've done my fair share of roleplay, and as long as it's not harming anyone or anything, I am game for everything. I want people to enjoy their quirks and have fun, so I can roll with this. "Hi neighbor, how's your night going?" "I like it when you wear the short shorts." I can hear in his voice that he's masturbating. This becomes a talent in phone sex work, by the way. "You like that? What else do you like?" "I like it when you wear the short shorts, but I don't like your dog, he barks too much." The line went dead. My blood solidified in my veins. I mentioned my best friend earlier. He is a puppy who will quite frequently lose his shit at squirrels, bugs, or anything really. He's a yippy baby terror, and we're working on this. A little backstory. For being in sex work, I dress extremely conservatively. I'm not ashamed of my body or anything, but I developed early and have had a lifetime of being sick of people commenting on my body when I wasn't in the mood to hear it. The only time I wear shorts is pajamas. The only time I walk outside in pajamas is to let the dog out in the morning or before bed. We share a wrought iron fence on one side with an older couple, and a high privacy fence all around the other tree. If the caller was my neighbor, you guys, the next part has me pants shitting scared. When I woke up this morning, I noticed that I had forgotten to lock the back door to the house. I live in a friend's house as a tenant, and I am so good about remembering to lock the door because if his stuff gets stolen, I'm on the hook for it, and we don't live in the best neighborhood. I'm making dinner tonight when the doorbell rang. I hadn't ordered anything, so I ignored it. The glass front door gives a full view of the kitchen where I was cooking, but I didn't care. I don't feel like it's my house, so I leave it to the roomie to answer the door. The person stood there long enough for all the dogs to start barking. Roomie finally came out of his room and asked if I had heard the bell. I said yes, but I didn't answer because I assumed he had ordered in or whatever. Nobody was at the door. Roomie shrugged. I bet it was just the neighbor. He had stood there watching me cook for 15 minutes, I realized. And then I remembered that as our next door neighbor, with my roommate being here alone before I moved in, he had been given a set of keys in case of emergencies. I thought of the unlocked door from last night. I thought about going to the police, but I know a lot of them view and treat sex workers not very well, and I am not feeling the urge to be told I am asking for harassment because of my trade. And I don't want to move because I am already looking to relocate to another city to join my SO. I know we have our 4 nosy, very territorial dogs, and my roommate is almost always here, but until I am able to leave the city, I really just hope I don't wake up to him standing over my bed and that nothing ever happens to my dog. Don't worry, he's never out in the yard alone, and I am a helicopter dog mom. Update. I just remembered that the screen doors have locks. Dumb, I know, but I'm a long-time apartment dweller here, so unless this creep wants to leave physical evidence, slashed screen, broken glass, etc., at least we know he can't break in for now. One for the good guys. So this happened yesterday. I work at a shoe store as a part-time job so that I can afford my studies. Basically, I help people trying to find the size they want and advise them, because we also have sports shoes and hiking boots, and have to put shoe boxes on the shelf when we get new articles. This kind of stuff. We have 3 alleys to which we are assigned for the day. Men, women, and kids. Yesterday, I was assigned to the kids alley, which is the alley I kind of like the least because, well, kids have a tendency to throw tantrums because they don't like the shoe their mom wants to get for them. Or simply because they're kids, you know? You also have to know that there is some kind of small kid-friendly zone in that area of the store, where there is a little TV that screens cartoons and some chairs. It is really common in my country for big stores to have that kind of stuff. This woman enters with her daughter, and when they get to my alley, I greet them and ask how I can help them. They tell me they're just taking a look, so I go back to my other occupations. At the same time, some guy walks in, probably in his mid-30s, and he gives off a weird vibe, but I don't really pay attention to him. He was not the first weirdo to enter the store. The mother and daughter keep looking around, and the mom asks which kind of shoes her daughter wants. Pretty normal stuff. I see the weird guy giving looks in our direction, but for the moment he stays in the men's area of the store, which is nearby, so I don't really see the problem. I am a woman and had my bunch of guys just staring at me just because I am in possession of boobs, and apparently it disturbs them, so I just thought he was one of those guys, but I was not the one he was staring at, as I came to realize. After a while, the mom needed to use the bathroom. She asks me how to get there, and I tell her. She asked me to keep an eye on her daughter while she is away, which is no problem to me. I went to the daughter and asked her if she wanted to watch some cartoons while waiting for her mom, and she agreed. So she sat in front of the TV and calmly watched the cartoons. My boss comes in and gives me some articles to put on the shelf, so I tell the daughter not to move and that I am right here if she needs anything. Then go to the other side of the area to put the shoes on the shelf, and after a few minutes, I hear a scream. I immediately went back to the TV, and guess who was trying to take the little girl with him? Yep, the weirdo guy. He was just waiting for an opportunity, apparently. I asked the guy why he is talking to this girl, and he tries to lie, telling me that she is his daughter. I had heard the mother saying her daughter's name before, so I asked the guy what her name was. It says it's Emily. It was not. I asked him to go away from the store or I will call security. When he heard that, he was gone like the wind. The mom comes back and I explained to her what happened. She thanked me. Apparently, the little girl screamed because her mother taught her that when a stranger approached her, that was the thing to do. I'm really glad that she did that because it made it so he didn't have the time to enter physical contact with her, as the scream made me arrive quickly. If she hadn't done that, he might have been able to take her. Edit. Okay, so after seeing the comments, I just wanted to clarify a few things. First, yes, the police have been called. My boss had known about the incident and I wasn't sure if he had already called them, but I contacted him and the police are now investigating camera footage. It would have been useless to call security because he ran away very quickly, and by the time they would have gotten there, he probably would have been gone. My priority was to get him away from the girl, but that doesn't mean this should go unpunished. I told the mom that we were counting on finding the guy and told her to keep in touch with my boss once he retrieved the camera footage and gave it to the police. People also seemed very shocked that the mom would leave her daughter alone in a store simply being watched by an employee who has other stuff to do. It doesn't necessarily happen a lot in our store, As I said in the comments, but since we live in a very calm town and the parents are usually gone for less than 5 minutes, I feel like it wasn't a huge deal. I told the mom that I probably would have other occupations and that I could not have my eyes on her daughter at all times, that there was no problem in me just being sure that the girl was still just watching cartoons, not destroying the store and whatnot. As I said, it's a very calm city, and the mall in which the store is in one of the safest neighborhoods of this calm city. But even when I said that, she was not really worried. It was not a busy day, and we could really not have predicted what happened. We were also pretty positive that in the 5-minute span where the mother was gone, nothing major would happen. Sadly, that was just not the case. I have once refused to keep an eye on children when I knew it was going to be rush hour, and that I would not have time to even check on the kids. So yeah, just to reassure you guys, we do not accept being babysitters while we were supposed to do something else. This story has made me think about all of this and accept doing this in the future. But you have to realize that what happened does not represent the usual safeness of the place. But it does raise the question of what you should do when you know that even if they're very unlikely to, these kinds of things might happen. This story starts back in 2017 when my boyfriend and I started living together. Rent in our country has been really high for years, so after looking for a long while, we decided to emigrate. Our college is very close to the border between our home country and the neighboring country, and in the neighboring country the rents are way lower. After a few months, we found an apartment. It used to be the old hay attic of a farm, but a rich couple, the landlords, turned the attic into an apartment years ago and turned the rest of the house into a home for themselves. We loved the place and signed the rental agreement and moved in September of 2017. At first, all was great. We liked our landlord and his wife, even though they were a bit eccentric. But after a while, things became less comfortable. The landlord would blast loud music at all hours of the night. If he asked him to fix something, he would show up at 2 a.m. He constantly bragged about how he kicked out the precious tenants after they told him that the rent was too high. When rats infested our roof and ceiling and created holes that went straight outside, he'd use expanding foam to kill them, trapping the rats in the process, which led to them dying and decomposing in the ceiling. And most importantly, he would knock on our door for minutes on end, and if we didn't answer, he would stand underneath our window and yell our names. Like he knew we were there, but we were ignoring him. Once he even got into the apartment without permission. I got home and was sweaty as heck, so I walked straight into the bathroom, which was located on the left side of the entrance. When I came out wrapped in a towel and walked towards the living room, he suddenly came through the front door. I asked him what he was doing here, and he told me he left his key in our house after a visit, even though he used that key to get in. The last point finally clicked when we moved out. The landlord was about to move to Poland, and the new landlord was a jerk, so we decided to move out. We told him about it, and he said, "Well, can you give me back my camera then?" We thought he was joking, but after he left, we suddenly felt so weird about it, so we checked. The apartment had a very high pointed ceiling, so we had to use a ladder, but there on the high horizontal beam, found a small camera, pointed at our living room. I think I still have the video somewhere of my boyfriend cutting the wire. All of a sudden, the cam network we saw on the Wi-Fi list on our phones was gone as well. We moved out and thought about pressing charges, but this man had a great lawyer and was long gone by then. I really do need to say, landlord, let's not meet, as recently one of our new neighbors told us a man called our landlord's name was in our street looking for us. Thankfully, I recovered from this with no lasting harm, but it's a wild story I like to tell people. Before I get into this, I have to note that a lot of my actions in this story are very stupid. When this happened, I was a naive and stupid 18-year-old. I was raised very isolated and had been given absolutely no life lessons or real-world lessons by my parents because they thought I would never leave home. That's a whole nother story. So when I was kicked out a few months prior to this event, I had to learn everything the hard way. I had some extra money after I had paid rent. I thing I never had, so I decided to check out this restaurant I've been wanting to. I left the restaurant and decided while I was out to go buy cat litter at a CVS across the street. I left without cat litter because they didn't carry a brand I usually went with. This is where I ran into a dude I never got the name of, but he's crucial to this story. He was a panhandler, not a very uncommon thing in the town I lived in at the time, and he cornered me and started rambling on about something. He was talking so fast and scattered, I didn't catch everything he was saying, but it was clear that he wanted money. I kept reiterating to him that I didn't have any cash, just a debit card that didn't work at any ATMs, which wasn't a lie. It was a debit card issued by the Cash App. Even still, he started to lead me to an ATM to get money out for him. At one point, he took my phone and called himself to get his number in my phone for some reason. When he pulls me to the ATM, a woman is standing in front of it. I recognized this woman because earlier she had stopped me on the street to ask for directions, but left like she was frustrated when I pulled out my phone to find it on Google Maps. She and the man get into an argument which I have reason now to believe had been staged. I heavily believe the two were working together. She calls security over, and the man makes a show of telling the woman that he's going to shoot her. The woman pulls me off, introduces herself as Beth Weasel, and keeps reiterating to me how she saved me from this man. She keeps bringing this up all through the night of the event, how she saved me from him. I was so frazzled from the event, she somehow convinced me that I agreed to give her $20. Her original story was something along the lines of her sister being in jail and her car having gotten towed and her needing just $20 more to bail her sister. I don't remember the reasoning for the jailing. She talked so fast I couldn't really get a lot out of her. I mentioned my card doesn't work on ATMs, but I believe it can get cash back. She drags me to a Walgreens and asks me to get cash back there. Turns out I was wrong. I couldn't get cash off the card in any way but my conventional means. I didn't have a bank account to the cash out from the Cash App too, which is why I had the debit card linked to Cash App. That's also another story involving Chase screwing me. This is where her whole 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. kidnapping event started. She is absolutely desperate to get money off of me. A lot of things happen that can be summed up in a few points. She drags me around to a few stores in the block to try and get cash back. It doesn't work at any of the stores, and she hatches a scam to buy batteries at a gas station, bring them to a CVS, claim to return them, and get money that way. Well, it does work, and I give her $15, thinking the deed is done. But she suddenly needs more. This goes back and forth with the buying and returning at another store scam until she trips up. Instead of buying batteries, she buys hair dye at Walgreens to return at CVS, but CVS doesn't carry that brand. The scheme is broken. Walgreens won't do a cash return, just put it back into my card. So now she has, I believe, about $20 to $30 in cash from this scam, but it's not enough. I'm done with her, and I tell her that I am more than happy to buy her an Uber and to drive her to her sister, and then she can pay the bail. She keeps freaking out about the Ubers, claiming they're so unsafe. She finally does agree to the Uber, but not for the reason I wanted to get her one. Now, she has a new plan to get money off this hair dye. Take the hair dye to Walgreens 1, return it at Walgreens 1, and get store credit on a card. Bring the store credit card to Walgreens 2, buy hair dye there with the card. Bring the hair dye to Walgreens 3, return for cash. The plan only worked because the dude at the register knew her, probably knew what was happening and gave me cash instead of a card because he felt bad for me. He insisted on signing me up for a Walgreens rewards card and typed into the field, "Sorry for her." The Uber driver returns us to our original part of town, near the restaurant mentioned earlier. She insists now that she wants to repay me for being so kind to help her. Uber drives us to various homes downtown. She disappears for 10 to 20 minutes at a time and returns. She claims it's because she left her purse at her friend's apartment. He won't let her in, so now she has to go to his mom's apartment to get his mom to call him. The Uber driver is eventually fed up and offers to drop me off at home. I don't want this woman to know where I live, so I say no to it and break down crying because I just want to go home. He drops us off at a Waffle House. Beth blows up on me, claiming my acting crazy and crying is why he didn't want to drive us anymore. I yelled back at her, It was the first time I'd said anything against her that night. I didn't start crying until after he said he was done. And now suddenly she keeps claiming that she's scared of me. I keep telling her I just want to go home, but she won't let me leave. Eventually, she starts going on about how we could go to the hospital and sleep there, and in the morning she'll take me to a bank so she can repay me. I don't buy it for a second, but there is a hospital within walking distance of the Waffle House where we were, and I told her I would only go there. My plan was to leave when she was there and walk home, which was only a 3-mile walk from the hospital I wanted to go to. She started pretending to fall asleep, claiming she was too tired to walk the half-mile to the hospital, and tells me what I need to do is fake an anxiety attack, call an ambulance, and then the ambulance will take us to the hospital. She takes my phone from me and calls the ambulance. I'm furious now because I kept saying no to this. This seems illegal. It's already done, so I just say, "We are going to the downtown hospital. I will not go to any other ones. That way I can still have my plan to walk the 3 miles home." She agrees right up until the ambulance gets there and tells them, "You know what? Her mom wants her to go to the hospital on the east side of town. This is closer to her house apparently. And as for me, 13 miles away from home." It is 3 a.m. by this point and the buses have stopped running for the night. I would be stranded. The only reason I got out of it is one of the paramedics knew Beth. She made her sit in the front seat while she, the paramedic, drove. The male paramedic sat in the back with me and didn't have a clue what was going on. When we got there, the woman made Beth go to the lobby. I broke down crying, saying I'd been held hostage by her all night and just wanted to go home. The paramedic told me she knew what was happening. Beth had done this multiple times before. Eventually, a cop drove me home and that was the end of the night. Some other things that happened that I didn't know how to fit into the story without breaking the flow of it. She kept claiming that she needed to pee every 10 minutes, but then would spend 15 to 20 minutes in the bathroom. At one point, she forced me to stand in the bathroom with her so I wouldn't leave her sight. She kept trying to convince me she was a rich businesswoman and her dad was a very wealthy landowner named Ben Weasel. To her credit, Ben Weasel does exist and he is a landowner, but he's 30 years old. His kids in his photos are elementary-age children. Beth looked to be 40 or 50. She kept telling me that if I stayed with her, she'd buy all of these things for me. Buy me a car, get me my own apartment in the nice part of town. I didn't believe any of it, but honestly, I was stuck with her in a very bad part of town. I'd rather stick with a crazy but not armed and dangerous woman than a random dude that might do worse than steal my money. She was so wrapped up in her lie that she was this rich businesswoman. She said, "You should Google me." So I did. Guess what came up? Police records. A story about stolen car that she was involved in. And a news article archived from the late 80s about her trying to bribe someone into not reporting a pit bull killing their dog. She kept talking about this friend of hers named Chia that we could go stay with for the night before the hospital thing happened. This Chia person sure seemed to have a lot of identities. First, she was a girl who worked at a courthouse. Then she was an old woman who used a respirator at night, so she couldn't hear when Beth went to knock on her door and then called her. This was one of the stops we made with the Uber driver. Then he was a man who could give them money if we bought him a gift card to a steakhouse. She couldn't keep her story straight at all. She kept putting numbers into my phone for various reasons, claiming they were her family members, even claiming one was her sister. You know, the one supposedly in jail. People she could call for help or something. And was very, very insistent that I delete all those numbers. She made me let her look at my phone to make sure the numbers had been deleted. If it weren't for that, I probably would have called them out of curiosity after the fact. She got weird every time I took my phone out, even though I wasn't doing anything but looking at the time. At one point I took my charger out of my purse and she freaked out thinking I had a gun. The dude I had initially run into that led me into this trap popped up again, knocking on the window of a gas station we were in. And Beth made a huge show of calling the cops on him. He left immediately after knocking on the window. It would have been impossible for him to have tracked us down. He would have had to have been following us all over downtown for about 3 hours. I know the two were working together because of this. Because Beth even made a huge point of. Now, how could he have followed us? See, I'm protecting you. I'd like to say let's not meet, but I actually did run into her 2 more times after that, and thankfully nothing came of either of them. I was on the bus to work one day and she was there blabbling to some other guy on the bus. She hid her face when I got off, as I didn't hear her distinctive voice rambling about her "I'm so rich" scam to some poor dude. Good thing the guy didn't get roped into it. The second time I saw her walking across the street at a bus stop I was at. She didn't notice me that time. This just happened 2 nights ago, and I'm not over it. I was working in my bedroom, which is where my desktop is set up, and it was about 12:45 a.m. when I decided to wind down for the night. My husband had gone to bed around 9 p.m., but selflessly offered to take up the guest room so I didn't have to stop working. He's awesome. Typically when this happens, my husband takes our dog with him. So imagine my surprise when I turned the lights off and saw my pup crawl out from the other side of the bed, give a big stretch, and come up to me. It was 1 a.m. on the dot. Turned on the patio light and let the dog out to go to the bathroom. She is older and tends to wake us up in the middle of the night to go. I thought I'd prevent that from happening. I watched through the blinds as my dog stared out at my sight line and began to wag her tail profusely. She crept just out of view, her eyes very focused. I got a gross sense of dread and began to panic. I threw the door open and called for her. That's when I heard him. I don't know what he said. I was too petrified to listen, really. She didn't come at first, just kind of looked at me and back at the person on my porch, who I couldn't see. I noticed then that there were pillows and a blanket stacked on top of my grill that for sure weren't mine. I screamed my dog's name and she came back in. I ran to the other side of the house and woke up my husband, shouting that there was somebody on our porch. He got up in disbelief and wandered to the patio entrance from the kitchen and opened the door. There, a young man, about 20 or so, sat on the ground against our house. He was barefoot and on the same wall that the bedroom entrance to the patio was on, which is why I couldn't see him unless I had stepped out. My husband asked if he was all right, but I couldn't hear his response. Husband told him he was at the wrong house and that he needed to leave. We went to our safe and grabbed our handgun, trying to talk through the insanity and our nerves. We don't live in a crime-heavy city. We've never heard of anything happening in our neighborhood, and nothing like this has ever happened to us before. But there we were at 1 a.m. with a stranger on our patio, who had been there for who only knows how long, in the dark. When we walked back to the living room, we saw that he had moved to a chair on our patio. My husband shined the light on the handgun at him and shouted for him to leave. I called the police. When they arrived, of course the man was gone, but his pillows and blanket were still there. One of the officers told us that he believed who this young man was. He had some sort of psychotic episode earlier in the week after coming off of his bipolar meds. He lived nearby and was probably headed back that way. We are no strangers to mental illness, so naturally I kind of felt bad that we had leapt to calling the police and brandishing a weapon, but at the same time, what the heck are you doing in my yard? So young Manu opened my gate, closed my gate behind him, and sat on my patio at 1 a.m. I still have your pillows. They are on my back porch where you left them. Come back and grab them, but do it when I'm not home, please. Let's not meet. All I really recall of this guy was that he had a lazy eye and was dressed pretty dirty and wore old, torn up plaid with long hair and seemed to be in his mid-30s. The encounter lasted about an hour. I was in a small town, about 800 people in the winter, close to 2,000 in the summer, as it's a tourist town in southern Montana, next to Yellowstone. We had about 1,000 guests in town at any one time, and I was in the middle of my second year living there alone. No family. By now I knew everybody. They all knew me and was on the tail end of a crisis where I had to learn how to be a person, from being introverted, shy, and sheltered. So I felt as if I owned the town. On my way to the bar, I was crossing the bridge at around 11 p.m. and forgot a lighter. Saw a guy across the street sparking one up and called over if I could have a light. I was about to cross over if he said yes when he came over to me, which was a little unnecessary, I felt, but not weird. He gave me a light and began to talk at about a mile a minute, asking me questions without listening to the answer. I felt inclined to listen as he obviously had a lot to say, and he gave me a light. It was only polite, and I was about being friendly back then. It's important to say that I didn't really have a danger radar. I can read people pretty well, and if I get a bad vibe, I backed out, but I never felt afraid of anyone or anything, except wild animals, because I just lost everything and didn't have much to live for. I got the back out vibe, but instead listened for about 45 minutes while he talked more and kept me verbally trapped, because I didn't want to be rude or make him mad, as he seemed a little bit volatile, in spite of saying I needed to go meet people. The thing was, I didn't actually know if the bar was open. It was the fall and they closed when it got slow, which some days were 2 a.m. and others 10 p.m. I could see the smoking deck, but nobody was outside for any of it, which was weird as 80% of people seemed to smoke in that town, and if it was open, the deck was usually packed. He talked all about how he was on a trip with his dad because his mom had just passed away and went into that. When he asked why I was in town, I said I lived there because I too had just lost my mom and needed to sort my life out. He berated me for talking about depressing things and how it wasn't attractive to talk about that sort of stuff, which was really hypocritical, as he had spent a good while talking about the same situation in that tone that was looking for pity or validation or whatever, whereas I just stated it as a fact. I was pretty numb to it still. He asked me more personal questions. I answered some, and others I ignored. He asked if I smoked weed. I did back then and asked if I had any. I said no, even though I did, and if I wanted to go smoke where we could smoke, etc. From our spot, it was easy to go under the bridge or down the alley on the far side of the bar. Everybody did that, but I wasn't about to, because my mind was telling me to absolutely not be alone with this guy somewhere more private. He didn't know this town. He had no idea that no cars would pass by till morning, so he didn't get weird, but verbally he kept putting me down when I spoke, saying things that were obviously pity ploys, you know the kind, to make girls feel bad and be nicer, but got visibly annoyed when I didn't show much sympathy past what would be normal. He kept trying to get me to go somewhere with him, somewhere private, anywhere private, and I was like, no, happy to be here, thank you. He kept putting my intelligence down and telling me how he knew so much more than me, that I was a baby and hadn't seen or done anything and I should listen to him. I would have chalked that up to it just being the way he was, but how he said it unsettled me. Real grooming questions and tones I've heard from people that ended up screwing over my friends before. Put them down, make them doubt themselves, and swoop in like a guardian. I didn't like that, but I wasn't sure how to leave, because by now, when I was telling him I was going, he seemed to want to follow me, and if the bar was closed, there was a lot of dark places and no one lived on that end of the bridge. I was absolutely thinking I needed out. Everything was closed and I have bad knees, so I couldn't even run from him. I was starting to worry a bit as he was getting more and more insistent to go somewhere with him, and he was slowly getting bolder in my space. With that, he said, as we hadn't seen anyone, trying to convince me to go somewhere secluded. He also said he had to pee, so I came up with a plan. Told him we could go under the bridge and walked over to the large rock fall that everybody climbed up and down to go there, made of large boulders. It was a climb, but one even I could make, and had many times with groups of friends. He climbed down first after some goading to make him go before me. He tried to get me to go first to show him it could be done. As soon as he was at the bottom, he asked if I was coming, and I noped out of there and went to the bar. They were too close together, so I would check both and make a beeline for the housing not too far off where I had a smoking buddy if they were closed. Plus side, it was open and I knew everybody inside. I told them about the weird guy and I walked with them back across town when they were done partying to my house, which was right on the road. And I also lived alone with my closest neighbor, who was an elderly, nearly deaf man. I knew if I wailed my lungs out, somebody would eventually come, but so many people get drunk and shout or scream, nobody would come very fast, and he probably would have stopped me by then. Plus, I was a fair fighter due to daily sparring with my closest friends in town. It would have been a lot more frightening if I wasn't so up on myself about being able to take him in spite of the height difference. And truth be told, I probably wouldn't have stood a chance. I didn't even have a phone. The more I look back on it, the more frightening the experience becomes, especially because of how stupid I was ignoring all the obvious red flags of danger. People get assaulted all the time in towns around Yellowstone. One of my friends was stalked, and in another one of the towns, it's just flat out dangerous late at night when drunk guys looking to have a fun holiday start to roam. I knew of 7 assaults that were never followed up on by the police in the other town because 1, they had little info on the guys who did it and they had likely left town, and 2, it was this sort of small town where cops did what they wanted and it would have looked really bad / potentially ruin the entire town if it got out that girls were being assaulted there as it was. 100% tourist based. Thankfully the sheriff in my town was good, but he was across town that night at the last of the 4 bars, which was always open until 2. I rarely went because the elk had been camping out that season between my house and there, and elk 100% did frighten me. This happened in 2022 when I moved back to Jacksonville, Florida, from my home state of Pennsylvania for school. I was there for only about a week and was going to parks around the area to feel the subtropical swampy nature that I had been obsessed with since I was younger. I was 20 male at the time and had not made any friends yet, so I was going to a new park every day all on my own. This was the first time in my life that I was on my own, so I was dressing how I wanted. A crop top hoodie and some cute shorts. I considered myself a femboy. I've also always been told I look younger than I really am, which may not seem important, but I think it plays a part in why this story creeps me out to this day. One day, I had gone to a new park in hopes of seeing an alligator, though I can't remember which park it was specifically. I had just stepped out of my car and started towards the entrance of the park, which was a nice forested area with a welcoming wooden fence. There was a couple walking just ahead of me when suddenly, a quiet hey came from my right. I ignored it, but then another hey came a few seconds later. This time it was louder. I looked to my right and a man in his 40s wearing a gray t-shirt and cargo shorts started rapidly approaching me. He got up close to me, really close, and told me not to go in that way since there was recently a lot of gang violence and drug busts in this part. At first, I brushed it off and thought he was trying to be nice to me, but once I said thanks and started back towards the park, he shifted his body between me and the park. He told me he knew the park well and that there was a quieter secret path that he knew and wanted to take me down it. My heart sank as my eyes darted around the perimeter of the park. There were no other clearly visible paths from the parking lot, and as he told me this, another person walked by into the park. This man did not try to stop this other person from entering. They didn't even look at him. Their eyes were glued to me. I started to stutter and said thanks, but if this park is dangerous, I think I should just go. I started backing away, but he continued to press me, keeping pace with me and telling me I should go with him. Eventually, I just turned around and quickly walked back to my car, with him glued to my side. As I opened my door, I reiterated that if the park was this dangerous, I should just leave. But as I went to close it, he grabbed the upper part of my door and shifted his body between the door and the car so that I could not close it. He gave up on trying to get me to go with him, instead asking for my phone number because he, quote, wanted to make sure I stayed safe. I was holding back tears at this point and trying my best to keep myself from screaming, but calmly asked him to move. He didn't budge. I caved, but instead of giving him my current number, I gave him my old cell number, which no longer was being used. He entered it into his phone and started texting, which gave me just enough time to close my door and lock my car. He knocked on my window and I think asked if I got his message, and nodded my head before putting it into reverse and pulling away. Just before I left the park entirely, I looked one more time to see him walking away from the entrance and towards the far corner of the wooded area. I still have no idea who this man was or what he wanted, but I still stay up late some nights wondering what would have happened if I went with him. I don't know if he saw me as a young boy who was alone and vulnerable, or if he was genuinely trying to keep me safe. Thankfully, I never met this guy again, and I was able to visit other parks around Florida without any weird encounters like this. Three years ago, my girlfriend and I decided to hike up near her parents' place in Oregon when we went to visit them for a week. We decided to bring camping gear with us and stay the night. I'd only been camping once before, and it was in Boy Scouts, so it had been a pretty long time. My girlfriend grew up camping and knows her way around that area very well. So her parents' dog, Bear, a huge Newfoundland Lab mix, her and I head up the trail. We saw a few people out, mostly day hikers. People loved Bear and stopped to pet him, so a little after 6 we make camp, set our tent up, and pull out our grub. We had decided to buy big sub sandwiches, stuff for s'mores, chips, and a few tall boys of beer. I fired up a joint and she pulled out her guitar after we finished eating. It was a great relaxing night and we started winding down, getting ready to head to bed. She was in the tent, getting ready for bed while I finished the joint and made sure the fire was out. Suddenly, Bear growls this low menacing growl I've never heard from him before. I pet him, look around, and figure it's an animal or something. We get up to sleep, and around 1, I wake to my girlfriend shaking me. She looks terrified. I hear Bear growling beside us, and she holds her finger up, talking low. She tells me that she woke up to voices. I listen and hear what sounds like 2 men talking. Then we hear something absolutely terrifying. One of them says to his friend, "I'll take the girl, you get rid of the guy." I knew we were screwed. We had no weapons of any sort. My girlfriend unzips the tent and Bear rockets out. I've never seen him move that fast in my life. I hear one of the guys yell, "Oh shit," and I hear Bear snarling and growling, and I hear them running. My girlfriend takes the satellite phone her dad insisted she carry and calls her dad. He calls law enforcement, and we stay in the tent as instructed. Bear comes back out of breath. No sign of the guys, and we wait for the ranger. When they show up, they find no sign of the guys, save for truck tire tracks and some cigarette butts. They gave us a ride back down to our car, and later that day, Bear got a steak and plenty of love. I live in Finland in a fairly small city, and this happened to me a year ago when I was 14. So, it was Friday evening, and on every Friday, our mom let us go to the store and buy candy. So, I and my 12-year-old sister left our house to go to the store, and it was already dark outside. We made our way to the closest store, which was over a mile away. While walking, at some point, there's a man behind us walking the same way, but I didn't think much about it at the time. He could be just going to the same store, so I continue chatting with my sister while the man is behind us, following at a safe distance. We get to the store with no complications, and the man follows us into the store. We take our time selecting our candy and get to the register to pay. While I was packing the candy in my backpack, I saw this man buying only a chocolate bar. Pretty far away to go for a chocolate bar, I thought. And at this point, my suspicions start to rise for this guy. I get out of the store with my sister and we start making our way back. We walked for a while and I quickly glanced at my back, and the man was still there following us. I took a look at my sister, who seems totally unaware of the man's presence. We continued our walk, and up ahead of us was an unlit dirt road that continued for a good part of the trip. So I looked at my back again, and there the man still was, about 60 feet away. At this point, I was almost certain that he was following us because on our way to the store, he didn't walk this part of the way behind us. The dirt road goes through a forest, and it had a curve at the start of it. Once we get to the curve, I look back and notice that this man can't see us. So I pull my sister to the woods and we duck down in the woods. My sister is saying something and I just whisper, "Stay quiet," to her as I wait for the man to come. I could see the man's shadow coming down the road, and he started looking for us from the road. He walked back and forth on the road. Now, I was certain he was following us all that time. My heart was racing, and I tried to be as quiet as possible. The man didn't find us, but continued running forwards. We stayed in the forest for a while before getting the courage to come out. We walk the rest of the way home with no problems and get to our house. We eat our candy and have a good evening, but that really did bother me for a while. And especially my sister. Thinking about this still gives me the chills, and the thought of getting caught in that situation creeps me out, and I try to not think about it. I wouldn't want to meet this guy again. I live in a big city in Australia, and at the end of my time in university, I was desperate for money and just out of an extremely abusive relationship. Now, I am pretty impulsive and decided to start dancing as I'd actually been thinking about it since I was pretty young. To get myself through university, it took me a while to find a club I liked the look of, but I finally settled on one. Made a ton of friends, a crap ton of money, and still had time to get good grades. As far as I was concerned, life was great. Nothing creepy ever happened at the first place I was at. Anyways, one day I get toxic shock syndrome and show up to work crying and throwing up. And I was still forced to work. I was so mad that I left that club and started dancing at a new one that my friend worked in. We'll call her Jess, and this is where things started to get weird. Note, all stories come from the second place. Story 1. Followed by a gang. Me and Jess would always hang out after work. Me 19, her 18. We would go walk across the huge bridge in the city to a smaller part of the city and either play on the kids' playground, epic playground though, or smoke weed under the bridge. Keep in mind, this is about 3 a.m. in a huge city. One night, I noticed that we were being followed by a group of men of Middle Eastern descent. Me and my friend are both very confrontational and aggressive, and we actually both enjoy fighting. I'm probably the more paranoid one, but we were both equally aggressive, so I turn around and give them the most chilling death stare I can manage, and they look genuinely surprised that we're putting up a fight. Then one of the group comes up to us, and up until this point, they're talking another language. Me. What do you want? All the while holding intense eye contact. Me and my friends have made a bet that I can get a kiss from one of you. He was using one of those tones that you commonly hear in the PUA community. Stop watching shitty pickup videos, they don't work. I'm not talking to you. He turns toward my friend Jess, who gives him a belittling stare. Can I get a kiss from you? No, you rude ass son of a bitch. You, a gang of men guys, were following us, so get away. We are both getting equally agitated at this moment as the group is getting closer. The guy keeps on insisting that they were not following us and rattling on about random shit, trying to distract Jess. Notices it too, and we both start getting louder and louder, causing a commotion which causes the men to stop advancing. If you've ever been alone in this particular city at 3 a.m., it's very quiet. There's a lot of homeless people and a fair few cops around too, so this tactic aimed to provide witnesses in case anything happened. Eventually they left and me and Jess laughed at how scared we made them. Story 2, which is the scariest one in my opinion. Note that in stripper culture, we all take care of each other. One girl in the club that we'll call Maddie had gotten one of her guy friends to come into the club and chill for a bit. Note, this is actually illegal, but we'll call the guy Dave. Maddie is married with 2 kids and is wealthy as she owns property when I ask her why she dances, and she said for fun. And granted, it is pretty fun. Immediately, I don't like the guy, but Maddie said he wanted to buy a dance from me. I didn't end up dancing for him because I ended up booking a 2-hour VIP lap dance, so Maddie took him for a dance instead. Anyways, after work, Maddie and I go to the 7-Eleven where we get coffee and sober up a little bit. Maddie says that she is feeling a bit dizzy and she hasn't drunk much that night. This immediately sets off alarm bells because I'm paranoid. But then alarm bells really started going off when we witnessed some men out of town for a night of fun, just minding their own business, being assaulted by a homeless woman. Normally Maddie would laugh at this kind of thing, as it was pretty common. Plus the homeless lady had assaulted me and Jess previously. Story 3. But Maddie just looked at them sunken-eyed and asked in a weak voice if everything was okay. Maddie isn't wearing clothes that are warm enough, so I walk her across the bridge and we settle down in a well-lit hidden spot of mine that is warm and very well hidden from view that I always go to after work, as it's the warmest place. I test her motor skills and determine that she's been drugged as she is becoming more out of it by the second. I message her husband, who is not in Australia and on a military training exercise. I informed him of the situation and promised to take care of her. At this point, I want to call an ambulance, but Maddie is determined to stay put. She gives me her phone and tells me to answer any messages that come through. Sure enough, the first one I see is on Snapchat from Dave. I should have known. Where are you? You're not bailing on me, are you? I know for a fact that Maddie would not cheat on her husband as they were somewhat of a super couple. So I reply, what do you mean? Well, I can see that you're insert suburb area here. You want me to pick you up? I look over at Maddie and by now she is sleeping. I check her every few minutes to make sure she is okay. I look down at the text. How do you know where I am? Well, I just saw you and Athena, my stripper name, walking that way. Are you near insert building name here? I'll be there soon, don't worry. Did this guy follow us? Maddie chose that moment to wake up and projectile vomit all over the floor. There were voices from each side telling me what to do. Grab Maddie and run. Use the knife you have and scare the heck out of this weirdo. Call 000. Hide. My first concern should be the safety of Maddie. A mom and my own safety second. Not a mom. I try to convince Maddie that we need to go to the police, but she chooses that moment to tell me that she can't because she is dealing. Oh well, I thought I prefer handling things my way anyways, but still. Way to freaking tell me. So we are basically cornered in a large outside restaurant underneath a theater, and I can hear footsteps coming closer. I am in no position to defend both me and Maddie at the same time. I drag Maddie up the stairs and through the outside part of the theater. It's a freaking maze in this complex. So I am dragging Maddie, who is barely conscious at this point, through the theater maze until we get out to the other side. I demand that Maddie hand me any drugs she has, as I am going to dump them and call an ambulance. She's barely cognitive, so I search her and turn up nothing. Then I call an ambulance, and long story short, the guy Dave was up for several charges of sexual assault on sex workers. Maddie has since denied any part in dealing and doesn't remember pretty much anything. I, however, cut contact with her as I believe that she was dealing. Not that strippers don't deal, but it's generally a code of honor to tell the other girls, for one, we don't rat on you, and for two, we know who has extra baggage and where to get weed. Story 3. Assaulted by homeless woman, or at least attempted. Sometimes strippers can spot other strippers instantly, out of a crowd, if you are on the sweetie list. Every stripper in the vicinity knows who you are and is extra nice to you. So I don't know the name of the homeless woman, but Jess and I went to the 7-Eleven for coffee and talked to the owner for a little bit. The owner, that we'll call Ra, is on the sweetie list and gives all the strippers free tampons as he doesn't believe women should have to pay for them. And also routinely warns us about new sketchy characters in the area. I was talking and laughing with Ra as he was working security that night as Jess got our coffee when she comes out. Ra warns us about a homeless woman that's been harassing people. I won't include her description. I think Ra and me and Jess head off to begin our nightly shenanigans. Metal detecting for valuables on the man-made beach, smoking weed, exploring, scaring tourists, etc. I tell Jess that I really need to poop, so we head over to the public bathroom, and who knew it? The homeless woman is in the woman's bathroom. She looks at us once, screams, "You freaking dogs." Then backs up a few paces and, no joke, gets drugs out and starts smoking them. I still really need to use the bathroom, so I start heading to the men's stalls, Jess following behind and laughing at me. I tried to use the bathroom, but anybody with a history in biology will know your anal sphincter closes up if you've had a fright. So I tell Jess in the next stall that I can't use the bathroom, and we start walking out. The woman runs up and pulls both of our hair. I suppose she was doing heroin or something, I don't know. And was screaming in gibberish. She's short, skinny, and no match for us, so we just push her off and laugh hysterically. We leave and bitch about her for the rest of the night. However, this isn't the last time that we encounter her. A few days later, it's about 10 or 11, so there are still a few people around. I see this woman looking at herself in a store reflection. She's making the facial expression of somebody that is screaming, but she's making no sounds. Just staring, fake screaming. She sees me walking by and immediately comes over to me asking for money. I accuse her of assaulting me, and she spits on me and tells me I was hallucinating. Okay, whatever, I wouldn't beat up a homeless woman. I saw her several times after this and even asked Ra about it again, who said that he had to call the cops on her multiple times for assaulting people. Story 4. Annoying American tourists. Let me start by saying that if you are an American male, you are in demand. Australian women love American men, and that goes for strippers too. Because you've grown up in a tipping culture and a culture in which stripping is more acceptable, you'll be very popular with the ladies, stripper or not. Same goes for American women. They love you too. To preface this story, not to brag, but in that club, I was the best damn dancer there. My pull, flexibility, and floor skills are insane. I could usually book at least one dance with my stage skills. I didn't know what happened this night. But everyone, and I mean everyone that night, wanted me. As soon as I got off stage, I was approached by at least 5 guys, 4 a dance who were fighting over me. Nina, a lovely Russian and an older stripper who was a veteran stripper of 18 years, told me to pick the American as it was nearly closing time and I wouldn't be able to do it for all of them. One rule in the club: if Nina tells you to do something, you do it. Not even management stood up to her, so I take her advice and escort the American to the lap room. In Australia, at least in my state, you were allowed to touch everywhere on the stripper, except in the G-string area, and no mouth-to-skin contact. Anything else is considered prostitution. So this guy is touching me and everything seems normal. I grinding around on his lap, trying to see the reflection of the TV in the mirror. I go through all of my usual moves to grind on right leg. Left leg, floor routine. Bend over, a spread eagle. Keep in time with the music when he randomly says, "I wish I could cut off your breasts and take them home with me." Thought a hint of sarcasm or humor. I brush it off as, this is only mild compared to the things you usually hear. He then starts rattling off about how he hates his girlfriend and that I would make a much better girlfriend and he'd take me back to America with him and I'd never have to work again. I ignore it, bored, and soon the lap dance ends. So after we come out of the lap room, the club is dead. He starts trying to get me to leave with him and I can't remember most of the conversation, but I remember he was pulling some really emotional BS. I remember a few specific things. "I can't even have a coffee with you?" Or, "Do you pull this BS on everyone?" "I was nice to you. I bought a dance." Or, "I'm going to wait for you outside." I was tired and pretty drunk, so I paid literally no attention as I dealt with this many times before and knew how to handle it. I told my manager about him waiting outside and she called the police to escort him on. I do my usual routine, walk around the corner to the pie face, then go to 7-Eleven for coffee and chat with Ra. So I'm talking to Ra when he asks me if I know that guy outside. Sure enough, it's Desperado watching me. I quickly explain to Ra and he calls the cops, who gave me a ride home. Let me know if you guys want a part 2. I have many more stories like this, some funny, some creepy. Any dancers out there, share your stories. A few years ago, my boyfriend and best friend of 4 years had just dumped me. I was using this website called Meet Me to meet people in my area while I was in college. My profile clearly stated that I was not explicitly looking for anyone to date. I just wanted to meet people. I had just been dumped, so I was really trying to put myself out there, and I'm not really the type to go out. In my area, there is a giant dance-a-thon that my university does every year to raise money for a children's hospital. I had someone message me and ask if I had heard of it. I told him my dance team usually performed at it every year, and he told me he was actually one of the children that was supported by the event when he was younger. Thought that was pretty cool, so I asked him a little bit about his experience with that, and genuinely thought it was interesting. After a while, that conversation was kind of dead, and I didn't really have much else to say. Plus, it was getting late, and I kind of wanted to go to bed. I told him so, and after about 10 minutes of lying in my bed trying to sleep, I got another notification. I glanced at it real fast, and this dude had honestly sent me a novel. After this event, I swiftly deleted the account. So, unfortunately, I don't have access to the exact messages, so I'm going to do my best to remember. The first one went a little something like, "Look, I'll be honest, I really want to keep talking to you. In fact, I'd actually really like to take you on a date sometime. You seem like a really nice girl and very sweet and interesting. I think we will get along very well. I'm kind of alone in the world." Insert long-winded commentary about his loneliness here. He also did not use any punctuation, so it took me a long time to dissect this. I responded and told him I wasn't interested. He was about 7 years older than me. I was 20 at the time and tried to say goodnight again. Then he responded with another novel, along the lines of, "I don't think you understand. You are perfect for me. You were made for me. I'm sure of it. I believe God speaks to me, you know? And I believe God wants us to be together, and we will be. One day, you'll be mine," he said. I'm trying to be polite because he was so nice earlier, and I guess I'm naive. I don't totally know, but I kept responding, trying to let him down easy. Here are some more highlights. "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But God has decided this," he said. "Who are we to deny him his plan? Someday in the future, we will end up together, and you will realize it soon. We are going to have 3 children. I already know their names. 2 boys, 1 girl. God spoke their names to me. I wrote them down when I was 7 years old, and I still have the paper. Do you know how I know you're going to be my wife? Because I wrote your name down with it. You will be my wife. Don't make a mistake. God is talking to me now, and he's saying your name to me. Can't let you leave. At that point, I blocked and reported him. Noped the heck off the site and went to bed all creeped out. The morning came and he had found me on Facebook, and he was going on and on and on, starting with comments along the lines of, "Where did you go? How could you do this to me?" and "You're denying your fate." He did it all night. Freaked out, told him to leave me alone pretty aggressively and blocked him. I deleted all of the social media apps off my phone for the next few days. I asked my roommates to stay home with me. They agreed after I told them what happened. I was actually genuinely afraid this dude was going to come find me. I mean, he was local, and I had made nice conversation by telling him my major and some clubs I was in. He could have shown up anywhere, but thankfully he didn't, and that was the end of that. I can't figure out this person's motive. One night I was in bed with my boyfriend. It was about 1:30 a.m. I get a text from a random number saying, "Is this my name? Sorry for messaging late and out of the blue like this, but I don't think my boyfriend's name is being honest with me and I need to talk to you." We exchange a few texts and basically they're accusing my boyfriend of cheating on both of us. Obviously I was annoyed, but bear in mind, it was June 2020, right in the middle of coronavirus lockdown in the UK. We'd spent every day together since March. He denied it all and insisted he didn't know who this person was. The same number starts texting him angry texts, calling him a lying rat. Not looking good. But this is where it gets weird. This person gives no specifics. They won't tell me their name or what my boyfriend has done, only that he was a liar and that I was an idiot for believing him. I'd ask, but they would just reply with vague, angry texts. Their grammar and spelling were good, but they would use slang words from our local area. We assumed maybe it was some kids who found our numbers off Facebook and were having a laugh, so we tried ignoring it. Then nothing until my boyfriend gets a text the following afternoon asking him to meet them at a local social club for some company. I and a friend got straight in the car and went down there, and nobody was there and the club was closed because of COVID, but we couldn't help feeling like we were being watched. It was very weird. A few days go by and the same number starts texting me again. This time the text language is all weird, like spelling mistakes and saying you two with YU and the number 2, instead of just saying you two normally. That kind of thing. It felt like it was a different person texting me. They seemed a lot angrier with me now because I didn't believe them straight away. Then they texted me, "You are so dull. I saw him leaving your house earlier." Cocky, I said something funny like, "Where's my house then?" And they replied with my street name. He also knew things about us, like the fact that he was in the army, but I guess you can figure that out from his social media photos. I called them loads, but it would just ring twice and cut off. Tried searching the number on WhatsApp and on a few social media sites. Nothing. Only on Instagram would the number come up with the location of a film company in Rattle, Netherlands. When I'd Google the number, its provider is Tisme. I've never heard of it, but it looks like it might just be a fake number. They've never asked for any money or anything like that either. I don't get why somebody would go through that much effort just to wind us up. The last text I had was, "Okay, you will see eventually." Just super creepy. When I was 12 years old, my family and I lived in an old apartment complex. I say old because it's been standing for well over 50 years by the time we moved in. Some residents have claimed to have lived there their whole lives. Anyways, one particular thing that stuck out to me is that there was a strict no pets policy. The landlord actually elaborated on this, stating that a copious number of pets seemed to go missing around the area and now they restrict pets in hopes that it will end the problem there. As a child, I kept pretty much to myself. As for my brothers, who are 2 to 3 years older than me, they spoke and played with every kid that lived in the apartments and surrounding areas. Every day after school, they would beg our mother for some change so they could visit the candy lady. She was a local resident in the apartments who held a mini mart in her apartment. Basically, she would buy snacks in bulk, ranging from gummy snacks to chips, so she could resell them to the neighborhood kids. I'd never been at that point, but was of course curious. I'd asked my brothers if I could join them, and they declined. So I stole, I know, $1 from my mom's purse and followed my brothers and their friends so I could find out where she lived. Upon stalking them, I finally found out her apartment location, though they stayed inside for a while. I figured I would just go the next day. The next day after school, I took my stolen dollar and headed out to the candy lady's apartment. When she opened the door, she was an older white lady with a welcoming demeanor. She let me in and asked for my name. When I gave it to her, I asked her hers. She said just to call her the candy lady. She seemed very sweet and thoughtful, asking me about school and if I lived in the area. Kids usually don't come around here alone. Where are your friends? She asked me. I explained that I don't really have any and that I preferred to just observe. She seemed to sympathize with me because then she told me to take anything I want free of charge. As a child, I indulged in taking as much as I could carry. While thanking her on my way out, she said to me, "Come back any time, my friend." I felt pretty jolly at that point. 1, I got free snacks. 2, I made a friend. When I got home, I hid my snacks in my drawers, returned my mother's stolen dollar, and felt great overall. That is until I went back. I returned maybe 3 or 4 days after the first time. When I knocked, she answered the door frantically. I kind of got scared, so I told her I could just come back later. After realizing it was me, she told me no worries and insisted I come in. When I did, she asked if I came back for some more free snacks. I gleefully told her yes, but she said that the first time was a kind gesture. But from now on, I'd have to help her with a few things to earn my free snacks. I was used to working for things, so I agreed. It was simple enough. Just throw out her trash for her. I figured she was old and probably couldn't go outside much. The weird thing was, she had me take her garbage out to the dumpsters in the apartments next door. Fast forward to a month later, it had become our regular schedule. After school, I'd do my homework, then head over to her place to throw her garbage as well as collect my earnings. It was all easy breezy for a while. That is, until one day she didn't tie the trash bag all the way. I walked all the way down to the dumpsters next door, and before I threw it in, I decided I would tie it first. It was loose, so I had to untie it to fix it all the way. Curious little me couldn't help but look inside. There, I saw wadded up paper towels drenched in blood and hair. There was also much more plastic bags at the bottom of the bag. This freaked me out so much that I just dropped the bag right then and there and booked it home. As soon as I got home, I cried to my mom about my discovery. She said that she would go out and see it for herself after I told her which dumpster. When she returned, she said that she didn't see what was inside because the candy lady was already there, throwing it out when she arrived. My mom didn't say a word to her and just left. She told me she didn't want me going out that far anymore and to stop helping with other people's chores, completely neglecting what I had initially told her. Surprisingly, I was able to just forget, more like ignore what happened and go about my kid life like nothing happened. Then my brothers came rushing back home one day. They anxiously explained to my mom, who is as nosy as ever regarding neighbors, that the candy lady was taken away by the police. My mom dismissed it and told us to mind our business. My brothers were bummed out, though, because of their future lack of snacks. As a child at this point in time, I didn't really understand police and all this, so I was pretty much clueless about what happened. About a month ago, I had dinner with my mom. I am now 22 years old, by the way. My mom and I got to reminiscing, and we started talking about those old apartments. After discussing how old and broke down they were, I asked her if she remembered what I told her I saw. At first, she said she didn't. Then I mentioned that she was arrested by the police. Then the shock of realization hit her. She said that she remembered and that she actually asked the landlord about it shortly after she was taken away. Apparently, the landlord told her that the candy lady was actually killing and skinning animals that she found nearby. So she's the reason why pets weren't allowed. She was frickin' killing them and doing who knows what with the skin. And I'm the dumb little kid who got rid of the evidence for her. And for those of you wondering, the management of the apartments next to ours, the one with the dumpsters we used to dispose of the evidence, caught wind of the smell reeking from the dumpsters. and from there they were able to catch the candy lady. All I know is I'm glad I never went back once I realized what was in the bags of trash that she had me take out multiple times. And to the crazy candy lady, let's never meet again. P.S. If you are the candy lady reading this, I refuse to believe that you were my first friend. My mother, sister, and I, female and 18 years old, were shopping in our local Target. As we stroll around, I recognize a girl named Stacy, also 18 years old, that I used to go to school with. For reference, I dropped out of high school my senior year, so I haven't been in my old high school or seen anyone from there for about a year now. I simply glance at her and keep on moving, doubting that she recognized me because I haven't been in school for a year. A few minutes later, I am on the complete opposite side of the store when I see this girl again. Like last time, our eyes awkwardly met and I tried to just walk past her, but this time she actually said something. "Hey, didn't we play tennis together?" Stacy spoke with wide eyes and had a painfully large smile. There was a girl standing next to her, but I didn't recognize her. I simply replied with a yes in response. I was never friends with her in school. In fact, I never talked to her or even liked her. That's when she introduced herself, as if I completely forgot who she was. She goes on to question if I still went to high school, in which I explained that I graduated early with online classes. The conversation started out normal. Thought it was simply us catching up due to the fact that I had been absent from school. I kept wanting to cut the conversation short, but Stacy kept prodding about what I was doing now, if I was in college, and what it was like. Harmless questions. In fact, I didn't mind answering them. Then the conversation took an unexpected twist. Stacy somehow weaseled the conversation into one about God and Christianity. For reference, I do consider myself a Christian, but not one of those hardcore ones who are constantly spewing Bible quotes at strangers. She asked if I attended church, to which I responded with yes. Her eyes became even wider and her smile much bigger. Her whole mantra of God sounded like this. Back in my high school days, I was always partying and being so happy. But that was all fake and nobody knew that I was actually pretty sad. That's when I found this church that showed me God's way and his undying love. He accepted me and he'll accept you too. Now, I am always happy, for I have God on my side. And at this church, God truly appears before your very eyes. He cured me of all my physical and mental ailments, like when I messed up my knee in tennis. The whole time Stacy spoke, there was just a robotic tone about it, as if these words were memorized, practiced, or rehearsed. There was almost no genuine emotion in her, just wide eyes and a never-failing smile. Then her friend Ashley, late teens, maybe early 20s, began her speech. Keep in mind, my mother and sister are just an aisle away waiting on me. Ashley's speech went something like this. For a while in life, I suffered with depression. I was always faking being happy until I found this church, and it truly opened my eyes and heart. I no longer feel dead inside. This is when she hinted that maybe I feel dead inside too, and the only way to recover from it is to look to God. Ashley also used the word zombie to describe this dead feeling, and that's when I began to really think that there is something wrong with these girls. Ashley continued on saying, I don't think it is a mere coincidence that we ran into you. God must have led me to you. He wanted me to reveal to you the way. God put a vision in my mind of you opening a present, and that present is our Lord and Savior. She kept on ranting how this is destiny that we met and that God put Stacy and Ashley in my path to reveal himself to me. When Ashley mentioned depression, I could not help but to believe her for a slight second. I had been struggling with that for a few years but kept it quiet myself. And with me being a believer of God, I was almost fooled into thinking that this is a sign from God, telling me to finally open up and get help. But when Ashley began to ramble about her church, that foolish hope I had dissipated pretty quick. Then the two moved the conversation onto their church. They kept stating that it was not a normal church and that God himself in flesh and blood came to them at the church. They informed me that God came to them to heal them of misery and grief. Ashley then pulled out a business card that had the church's email, a Bible quote, and her personal phone number. Before the anticipated departure, They kept saying how cool I am and that they're glad they met me, and then we finally parted ways. I remember my legs being extremely weak when I walked away. That's when in my mind it clicked. Are they a part of some cult? Their mannerisms and behavior seemed too scripted to be real. That's when my sister found me and answered my suspicions. Apparently, before I had to endure that 10-minute chat with Stacy and Ashley, my sister overheard the girls were having the same conversation with another girl on the opposite side of the store. So this was all scripted, and it was their way of luring and persuading strangers to join their church. I realize now how they do it too. To reel me into their discussion, they discussed my absence from school and experience in college. To reel in the other girl they walked with, they started by complimenting her outfit and inquiring about her artistic hobbies. I wonder how many people they ended up talking to, and if they were just walking around the store hoping to find easy targets to talk to. I have so many questions, and that's what bothers me the most about this. And being the somewhat religious person that I am, their talk of God unnerved me. It is sort of humorous to think of now, simply because I think crazy God lovers are comical, but I'm still bewildered. If you have any information about how cults operate and how they coax people into joining them, please let me know. Does this incident sound like that? Like cult members trying to spread their message? Or simply harmless teenage girls simply spreading the love of God and the gospel? If you have any other questions about what occurred in my interaction with them, please ask. Also, it is possible that I will see Stacy again because she is attending my college next semester. Although Stacy and Ashley seemed harmless and just overly excited about God, I honestly hope that we never meet again. These events happened over several months in 2016, when my sister, then 16 and 14, and I moved into our most recent apartment complex with our mom. Admittedly, we were still in the hoverboard craze then and would ride them around. This is how we met Savannah. She was our age and lived in our building. She asked to hang out, and we were happy to hopefully make new friends, so we said yes. We hung out outside the complex at a little park area. It got dark and we started making up ghost stories. Turns out she liked creepy paranormal stuff like we did. Note, I did not actually believe in this stuff, and I still don't. Every time I reference the paranormal, it is hyperbole. As we were walking home, the light in one of the apartment hallways flickered, and I joked and said it was a spirit trying to communicate with us. Savannah made up a flash once for yes, twice for no. System to communicate with the spirit, and we messed around a bit. We thought it was just harmless fun. The next day she runs over to us excited. She informs us that the spirit we had met last night told her its name was Kieran, and it meant light. So it all made perfect sense now. We asked her how she knew, and she said that she went back later that night alone to talk to it. This was the first time it occurred to us that she might have really believed in this stuff. Our aunt had given us old Ouija board as a joke the year before, and we thought Savannah might like it. She lit up and said she wanted to try and talk to Kieran. So we huddled in the hallway connecting the apartments and put our hands on the board. We kept getting random letters that didn't make sense, but soon Savannah's questions were directed to Kieran. We felt her moving the planchette and called her out, but she got mad and said she'd prove it. She took her hand off the planchette, and it no longer moved. She just huffed and insisted it wasn't her. Over the next few weeks, we did mostly normal stuff with her, but she kept talking about the ghosts and Ouija boards until we broke down and played them again. This time we were introduced to a new ghost named Evan. We knew that it was Savannah moving the planchette, but were curious about the story she was making, so let her follow through. Evan was a ghost, or demon rather, about our age, who wanted to be free from a greater demon controlling him. That greater demon's name? Kieran. Savannah's parents called her inside, and conveniently Evan had to go too. He told us he'd protect us against Kieran, especially Savannah. Savannah commented on how cute that was for him to offer. A few days go by normally, but then Savannah's back to tell us she has a boyfriend. We are happy for her until she tells us his name is Evan. We're wondering what the heck she's talking about, and she explains that while sleeping over at another friend's house, something had tugged off her shorts while she slept. said that she'd woken up and heard Evan's voice. Then he'd visited her in her dreams and asked to date or something like that. She said yes. Of course, we know she made up Evan, so we're kind of like, what is wrong with you? And we don't talk about the demon stuff anymore. Now, Savannah was extremely possessive over her friends. When she would see us with somebody else, she would text us nonstop about why we haven't invited her. We tried to keep our distance, but she lived on the ground floor and literally watched out her window waiting for us to come outside. She would latch onto us. We didn't know much about her home life, but it always seemed troubled. She often talked about running away from home. Her parents seemed alright, if rather strict and religious, but we still hung out with her because we were worried but were starting to feel weird about it. Worse, she would randomly show up holding her hand out, saying Evan was holding her hand. She would look at random things and laugh when nobody was talking because Evan had told her a joke. Once, she made us feel her cheek where it was supposedly warm from Evan kissing her. It was not warm. One day, my sister and I were bored from her talking to Evan on the Ouija board. She was still controlling the whole thing and wanted some fun. I texted my mom to call my phone from a blocked number and play creepy sounds. Looking back, this was one of the dumbest things I did, but at the time it was just for fun. My mom made the call and I put it on speaker. Savannah is living for it, especially when my mom played a track from a scary movie about a ghost. My mom took it a step further and threw a banana off of our third-story balcony for us to see. Savannah said it was a sign that Kieran was winning. We had no idea of the fire this would light in her. We were about to tell her it was a prank, but again, her mom called her inside. She found us again the next day and I came clean about the prank. She laughed and said there was no way we could have done that. I said, no, my mom did all of it. Well, Savannah had told her friend about it, who told her that yellow objects like the banana were a sign of the devil and seeing them meant the devil was hunting you. This was all she talked about for a while, but since nothing else happened, she gradually forgot. Things went back to normal for a while, until Autumn moved in. Autumn and Savannah connected instantly because of their history with depression. Autumn was a few years younger than us, but had a heck of a lot more of a past. This included significant time spent in psychiatric facilities, and even violence toward her classmates and family. Autumn had claimed she heard demons talk to her at night, and just like that, the ghost stuff had started again. Savannah felt threatened by Autumn and felt the need to one-up her with the ghost stuff. She told her Evan was her ghost brother that looked out for her. I was like, hold on, you claimed he was your boyfriend. She giggled and said, that's gross, he's my brother. Her story had completely switched. Now she was dating another demon named Jacob and they were engaged. She even showed us a ring to prove it. The next week or so was literally like a match between them to see who was the darkest and most involved in the spiritual world or whatever. They would compare all kinds of things. Even stuff like doing things sneaking out in the middle of the night. In a move to one-up Autumn, Savannah drew a giant pentagram in the parking lot with chalk. Her parents found out and she backed out and blamed it on Autumn. The next freaking day, people came to repave the parking lot. The pentagram is now buried under it forever. Literally. Savannah moved on to saying her friend had found Jacob's body and was going to put his spirit back inside it. Savannah continued to take advice from this friend who fueled everything she did. Savannah now said the friend was teaching her witchcraft. We mostly avoided her at this point, but she would ask us to do things like make holy water with her and stuff like that. From that point on, she insisted that she was a fire witch and walked around wearing all black with Halloween-like makeup on her face. She and Autumn frequently snuck out together, and occasionally we would see cop cars at her house. My sister and I were avoiding them both, but now we would get fiery texts from both of them if we hung out with other people, especially our guy friends. Once they saw us get home and stood in the parking lot pretending to be possessed. Autumn also cut off all of her hair and claimed to have tried to kill her teacher. My sister and I knew it was BS, or at least we hoped, but Savannah took it so seriously. She'd go around telling neighbors of terrible crimes she committed or wanted to commit. She even told us that when she first seen us outside with hoverboards, she'd wish for them to blow up. One day we again saw the police come to her door, and the officers had jackets that said they were from the Juvenile Justice Department. Her mom pulled me, my sister, and our mom aside to explain what was going on. Apparently 2 years before, they discovered Savannah talking with a man online. Her messages to him were hiring him to come literally kill her parents after making threats of killing them a few days before. We were able to confirm the story after pet sitting for them and finding court papers about it. We'd known she was on probation, but she'd always tell us different stories as to why. Savannah continued to beg us to hang out with her after that, even inviting herself to spend the night. We avoided her at all costs, but she would follow us everywhere. It kind of died down when Autumn moved out, and Savannah moved with her family shortly after. Since then, she started doing service hours at horse stables and graduated high school. I really hope she's gotten happier and more stable. Autumn messaged my sister a few months ago, asking to call her mom to confirm she was with us. She wasn't, and we later saw her with a 19-year-old dude. She's 14 now, by the way. My sister and mom and I have moved as well. There were too many incidents in those apartments. Our new place is so quiet and peaceful. But to Savannah and Autumn, let's never meet again. Hello. I just came across this subreddit and man, some of these are terrifying. I do have a story of something that happened to me from a long while ago, but in hindsight, it was really dumb of me, and I feel terribly dumb now, so I've always been hesitant to tell a lot of people I know about it, except for my psychiatrist. And I always apologize for long posts, so it's hard not to here. There were some other conversations with this man named Sean. It was mostly him talking, but I left some of them out for length's sake. This was a few years ago. It was pretty late, past 1:30, maybe 2 a.m. I was living with this boy who was pretty abusive, and he had gotten really jealous at this party we were at earlier the night. Not even an hour after we had gotten home, he tossed me out onto our front porch and locked the door behind me. I was knocking and pleading for him to please let me back in. I was still wearing what I had worn to the party, and it was freezing outside. I wasn't sure what to do. He had my phone, purse, and wallet in the house with him, so I just sat on the porch crying. When he turned off the lights both inside and outside of the house, I knew he wasn't going to let me back in. I felt so hopeless and cold. I thought about knocking on a neighbor's door, though he didn't have many, but I had anxiety about waking any of them up and causing trouble for my boyfriend. So instead, I decided I would try to walk to this gas station and motel, which was like a little less than a mile away, so I could use their phone to try and call a girlfriend of mine to see if I could sleep over with her. Ironically enough, the road I was walking on was Donner Pass Road, so the freezing cold was fitting. But anyways, a little bit into the walk, this tall white pickup truck was approaching on the opposite side of the road that I was on. I tried to not make eye contact for obvious reasons, but then I heard the truck stopping and beginning to make a U-turn, and my heart just started pounding. I just about froze up, but forced myself to speed walk at the very least. The truck pulled up to me, and this guy rolled down his window and asked what I was doing out this late. I told him how I was going to meet my friend at the gas station and that she was expecting me. He sort of smiled and offered me a ride. I said no thanks, citing that I shouldn't hitchhike. He told me, well, good. I don't pick up hitchhikers or anyone. You don't look like a hitchhiker though. You just look like you need some help. He just kept driving next to me and told me I shouldn't think he was a creep, and he pulled out what looked like a police badge and told me he had just gotten off duty, which is why he was in civilian clothes and out so late. He said he wouldn't mind driving next to me just to make sure I get to where I was heading safely. I was naive and a bit too trusting of his kindness and credentials, and when he offered me a ride again, I said that it would be nice because the gas station wasn't that far away anyways. He popped the door open for me and I hopped in. The radio was low. It was a little messy. The ashtray was full of cigarettes and there were a lot of newspapers on the passenger floor. And as I was moving my feet, some of the papers shifted, showing a pair of handcuffs, some coffee cups, empty water bottles, rags, a highlighter colored bandana, and some other things. He apologized, saying that it was the truck he took hunting, but it was super warm, so I was happy and didn't mind at all. He told me his name was John. He asked me why I was so scantily dressed without a jacket, and I started to tell him about the party and the fight I had been in with my boyfriend. He was super charming and attentive. He even laughed that he could go back and arrest him. I asked about him and he told me about his family. He was a young dad. He had a wife, a daughter, a son and a dog. And I told him it was like he had the perfect little family, and he laughed and said he certainly did. Then it had sort of clicked for me to ask him if I could use his phone, but he said no because he had to save his battery. We were approaching the gas station and he drove right past it. I politely said, "Oh, I think that's the one." But he didn't answer me. I felt sick to my stomach. My heart started pounding and I started getting choked up. And my eyes started tearing up as I was looking out the windows and watching the lights behind us getting further and further away. It was hard for me to even speak, but somehow I murmured, asking if he could please turn around, and he ignored me. Whenever I would look at him, he just looked empty-eyed and emotionless, totally dead and glazed. I looked back out the window and down at the end of the road to see if maybe we were going slow enough that I could make a leap out of the car without seriously injuring myself. I remember always hearing, "Never go to the second location," but I thought about the possibility of jumping out and breaking an ankle and how it would be a lot harder to get away with 1 foot as opposed to 2. Debating with myself that there was snow on the ground, but then again, snow is hard to get along in, especially when you're not fully clothed. I feel so dumb now too because I wasn't even tied up or anything. I was just so scared though, like there was nothing but trees and an empty road, and us. I was crying pretty badly at this point and asked if I could please borrow his phone again. I don't know why I even asked, and he told me to stop talking. Then he started talking underneath his breath saying, "You know, girls shouldn't be out so late. You shouldn't have been alone this late. Look what you're doing to me. Dressed like a slut," and other derogatory things. As he kept saying these terrible things, too many to type out here. I wasn't even responding. I was just crying and trying to think past the fear I was feeling. I remembered the pair of handcuffs I remember seeing under the papers beneath my feet, so I used that little, I don't know how to describe it, like scoopy motion. I managed to use my feet to scoop the handcuffs up and use my heels and toes to push them under the bottom of my seat as far as I could. I was thinking of different things I could do to try to help myself, like if we were close enough to some upcoming lights or structures, if I ever made it to them, I could just grab the wheel and cause us to crash into them. Or maybe how if I got lucky enough for a cop to pass us, I could grab the wheel and swerve so he would appear to be a drunk driver and we would get pulled over. I guiltily thought about the possibility that this man is just having a weird night and how if I did anything it would hurt him. But I also told myself that sort of thinking got me into this mess. He pulled off the road where there were still woods on both sides of us. On his side, the wooded trees were closer to the road. On mine, there was a small gap fully covered in thick snow. I don't know how many feet. Before the trees thickly picked up maybe 10 to 16 yards away. He turned off the car and coldly said there was something wrong with the car and to get out of it. As he grabbed the keys and was stepping out, I grabbed onto the center console and cried and pleaded not to make me get out with him because it was too cold. He turned around to face me, his door still open, and shouted at me to get out of the car because we had to go check the trunk bed hatch. I dug my fingernails deeper into the console, thinking my cries of no and head shaking would cause him to come around to my side of the car and drag me out of cell. I was crying and said, "Please, John, I'm cold and scared." I was thinking of everything I ever heard of. Humanize yourself and use first names. He stared at me in this way I can't even describe to this day. I wouldn't even know how to start. Got back in the car and I slunk towards my window, scared he would drag me over the console. He turned off the headlights and everything just looked dark blue. He stared at the steering wheel for what felt like years before lighting a cigarette and looking out of his window and back at me, and then back out the window. He heard me shuffle my feet on the newspapers. I was adjusting my legs, but while staring out the window, he told me if I thought about running, he had a quick way to get me where he wanted me. And oddly enough, I was sort of thinking of running minutes before that, but reasoned that if he wanted me out of the car, then I should definitely stay in. Otherwise, he could chase me or shoot me, in case he had hunting rifles in the back. I didn't dare look. I'm glad I was right. I think at that point, I sort of hit some sort of bottom of my reserve, and instead of panic, there was a numbness and exhaustion. There was still an occasion hot tear or two, but I just remember being numb. I talked to a psychiatrist about this sort of thing, and he thinks it just came from my ex-boyfriends giving me PTSD. It was dead quiet, but I finally just barely audibly told him that my friend was still waiting for me and asked about his wife and children, and he flatly said he didn't have a wife or children and that his house was empty. I asked him what he was thinking about, and he said, "I'm thinking of what to do with you." He didn't say it angrily, just said it flatly and coldly, which kind of scared me more. I did start getting worked back up to cry at that point, and he told me to not cry and turn the car on, offering me some heat. I just cried and said I wanted to go home. Eventually, he started driving and driving until we were approaching a gas station. I was gauging the right time to reach for the wheel, but before I could, he started slowing down. While pulling up, he told me to not tell anyone or he would find me, and then he told me all he was doing was teaching me a lesson, not to hitchhike with strangers. He was also coming to a complete stop when he told me to get out, before he changed his mind. Before he could get another look at me to assess my understanding, I was already down out of the truck and sprinting towards the gas station. The panic was overwhelming me, but then I stopped and remembered to try to see his license plate. Turned around, but that only caught the blur of the last 3 numbers as he was driving on. I ran inside and asked the clerk behind the counter to please call the police. I waited until the officer got there, and I'll be honest, I was a little bit scared it would be John. My fears melted away, and when the new-faced policeman got there, I gave him the description of John, his appearance, the vehicle color and type, the parts of his license plate number I had caught, and the fact that he said he was an off-duty cop. Just basically anything I could. I asked him if he could look at the camera, and the officer disappeared in the back for a little while, then came back out saying there was nothing on them. I asked if I would be able to look, and the officer said no, and asked me if I didn't trust him. I told him of course I did. The officer gave me a ride to my friend's, lecturing me for hitchhiking, consisting of him repeatedly asking if I knew who Ted Bundy was. Of course I knew. I was just naive to think it could never happen to me, and I was desperate for some warmth. I never heard anything back about the report that was made, so I would try to follow up, and each time I did, they never got back to me aside from this one time I was told my case number didn't exist. But that didn't stop me from trying to follow up. Throughout the months and years, I asked my friend, whose home I slept over at that one night, if she ever heard of any crazy stories or weirdness or anything since that incident happened to her or anyone up here. She always said no. So I sort of let it go and tried to tell myself that maybe he actually was just trying to teach me a lesson or something. I mean, I definitely never hitchhiked again, so if it was a lesson, it certainly worked. Never heard anything back having to do with the case. I've never heard of any other odd experiences up there, and maybe it was just one man trying to teach me something. But honestly, sometimes I think I tell myself all of that to help me sleep better at night. It all felt very real. Even if it wasn't real, I'm really glad I didn't get out of the car in the woods that night. This has also been super therapeutic to let out, so thank you so much for letting me post here. I was listening to a creepypasta, and there was a scene where a guy was looking closely at something in the dark, trying to understand what it was, and suddenly realized he was looking in someone's eye the whole time. So it reminded me of this situation. About 4 years ago, we were mushroom picking with a friend in the woods. Thought I saw some mushrooms. I was walking towards them, looking attentively and trying to understand if there were mushrooms there or not. Suddenly my eyes shift, and I realized this whole time I was walking towards a man who was just standing there looking at me. He was staring and smiling and doing the come closer gesture. I have no idea how long this has been going on, and this whole time I was coming right towards him. But I didn't notice him until the last moment. I got scared and ran to my friend. We laughed about it and continued the mushroom picking, lol. We didn't even go away too far from there. At the time it just seemed like a funny story. But the more I think about it, the more it creeps me out. Like, what? What was he going to do? Did he see me walking there and instantly decided to do the come closer thing? Was it supposed to be a prank? I'm so confused. Does anybody have theories on what his motivation was? I still have no idea. When I, 23 female, was 12 years old, I was potentially almost kidnapped. I was sitting in my living room, which has a large window facing the main road. when I heard somebody knock on the door in the mudroom, attached to the living room. My dad was downstairs playing on his drum set, and it was well into the evening. I thought it was strange, but figured maybe it was somebody who wanted to ask him to play quieter. We got many noise complaints over the years. When I opened the main door, there was a man probably in his 40s or 50s, wearing what looked like casual business clothes. Jeans, black shoes, and a button-up, standing there that I definitely didn't recognize. I didn't think a whole lot of it, but kept the screen door closed as a precaution. Here's how I vaguely remember our encounter playing out. Creepy dude. Hi, I was wondering if I could use your phone. I need to call somebody. Sorry, no, we don't have a landline and I don't have a cell phone. I lied because I had a bad feeling. Oh, that's okay. Do you think I could at least have a glass of water? I can wait here while you grab it. Sorry, we just moved in and haven't unpacked our glasses yet. Again, huge lie, but I was panicking. Through the window, you could clearly see that we had lived there for some time. Creepy dude trying way too hard to be friendly. That's alright, do you have a hose I can drink from? I was definitely freaked out at this point. Oh, sure, it's actually right there on the ground. Points to an outdoor hose a couple feet from the door. Now he said with an even wider smile. Oh, thank you. Do you think you could turn it on for me? Sorry, no, I don't know how it works. He's looking a bit angry but trying to hide it now. Oh, come on, you don't know how to use a hose? At this point, my fight or flight was in full force, so I just slammed the door, locked it, and ran downstairs to my dad. Told him what happened, and he stormed outside with a baseball bat, but the guy was gone by the time my dad got outside, and I never saw him again after this. It still freaks me out to think what he might have done if he got a hold of me. Late last year, I had my 21st birthday. Along with celebrating with my friends, my boyfriend's mom wanted to take me out as well. So his mom went ahead and reserved a table at a bar in downtown for Saturday night. Saturday night comes and there's major traffic, but it's always packed in downtown on the weekends, so this is expected. His mom and I park in a toll parking lot, and we have to walk about 5 blocks to the bar, where we are going to meet my boyfriend and everyone else at. So we start walking and arrive at a crosswalk that we have to wait at. There are maybe 8 other people standing at this crosswalk with us. I'm just patiently standing there minding my own business, when suddenly I noticed this girl standing next to me. She startled me, to be honest. 1, because of how she seemed to appear out of thin air, and 2, because of how close she was standing next to me. It's almost felt as if she were trying to huddle into me. Like, you know when a little kid is shy and will try to hide behind his or her parent? Yeah, that's how she was, except she was just leaning into me and she had her shoulders hunched over. Her hair was black and long, at least down to her waist, and she had on a long striped dress that went down to her ankles, a leather jacket and sandals. She looked to be around my age, but she had dark tan skin and black eyes. Her attire was normal, but she didn't act normal. She was behaving really weirdly and kept plugging her nose, as if she was smelling something bad. She kept skittishly looking around as if she expected something to pop out and grab her. To be honest, she was acting like a scared animal, but her demeanor was cold. Her eyes felt like they were dead and empty, and her face held no emotion. So, not liking how close she got to me, I took a few steps to the side. And guess what? She stepped towards me and got as close as she was for the first time. I sort of thought that was weird, but gave the situation the benefit of the doubt. Plus, the crosswalk light turned green right after she came close to me, so I figured I didn't have to deal with her, because we would walk our separate ways, right? Wrong. She walked across the street in the first few blocks with me, staying at the same closeness she was at. No matter where I moved to, and no matter how many times she almost got lost in the crowd of people, she would scurry up right behind me again. All the while plugging her nose and looking around everywhere. She made me feel weird. My boyfriend's mom at this point confronted the girl, saying, "Hey, do you need something? Are you okay or what?" To which the girl responded, "It's not safe." After she said that, she slowly lifted her head, cocked her head slightly, and looked me dead in my eyes. Her mouth quivered. My boyfriend's mom and I just looked at each other like, what the heck? At that point, I just wanted to get away from this weirdo. It was bad enough that she wouldn't stop invading my space and following me, but now she's saying weird stuff while looking at me. No thank you. Boyfriend's mom pulls me to her and whispers to me in my ear, "Walk faster and don't look at her. I want to see if she's following us." That's exactly what I do, and guess what? She follows us all the way to the bar. Despite my boyfriend's mom telling her to please stop getting so close to us, she responded with, "I want to stay with you guys." Despite taking unnecessary turns to see if she would turn to follow us, she would. I was freaking out internally all the way there. We finally get to the bar, whip out our IDs and as quickly as we can, so we get inside and away from the freak following us. You guys, she followed us inside and sat at our table, but she sits at the furthest side of the table. And she starts to scoot herself over. She only moves over when we look away. You turn your head and boom, she's managed to hop one seat closer to you. And she's just staring the whole time with this blank expression on her face. My boyfriend's mom has had it at this point and gets up to tell the bodyguard to make the girl leave. Bodyguard comes, tells the girl she has to go, and she actually starts to argue with him. I don't catch the whole conversation over the loud music, but I caught the girl asking him why she had to leave and saying she could sit anywhere she wanted to. She began to get really aggressive once he told her that this table was reserved for us and our group that she was not a part of. She got all fussy and looked at me with malice before she got up and stormed out. But she didn't leave right away. She stood outside looking in at me through the open patio at the front of the bar. She wasn't moving and seemed to care less about the hustle and bustle of the people around her. I would say she stood there for 15 minutes for finally leaving to who knows where. There was just this really bad and dark feeling that I got from her. She made me very nervous for some reason, and she just felt wrong. I mean, she was probably just somebody cracked out on drugs, but it was super creepy, and I just really never want to see her again. I'm a single woman who lives alone, and it was after midnight when I got home. I had just stepped out of my car when I heard a man crying. He was hidden in the shadows of my neighbor's shed, just outside my security camera's view, and he asked me to give him a ride to the park because he couldn't walk. He said his leg was busted and that his girlfriend had stolen his crutches. Now, I might be a lot of things, but murder victim was not about to be one of them. I offered to call an ambulance instead. He refused and kept repeating that he just needed a ride. Yeah, that's gonna be a no for me, bro. So I nodded and said, "Give me a second. I just need to put something away," and calmly walked to my door while trying to not look frantic so he didn't panic and decide to bum rush me. When I got inside, I locked the door and called the police. I told them that he might be injured or he might be full of shit. I couldn't tell. It felt sketchy to me, and I'm not an artist. I don't do sketchy. The cops arrived about 10 minutes later, and miraculously, the shadow man's busted leg had apparently been healed by the divine intervention because he was gone without a trace. My security camera has a spotlight that is activated when it detects movement, and I'm certain it was no accident that Shadow Man stayed just out of its view the entire time. Honestly, if it weren't for my camera, I might not even be here right now. This happened approximately 10 years ago, around 2015 or 2016. I was living with somebody at the time who worked an opposite schedule to me. He worked graveyard and I worked during the day. So when I was getting up to get ready to leave for work, he was just coming home. On the nights during the week, I obviously would be at home by myself. One night during the week, I was feeling especially lonely and my favorite toy unfortunately broke and died, so I decided to drive downtown to the 24-hour adult store to buy another one. The town I live in is a mid-sized suburban town filled with mostly residential areas. The main downtown area was essentially one small area on the way to the freeway. My apartment was 10 minutes away. I pulled into the parking lot behind the adult store. The parking lot was dark and had multiple entries all around that led to the bars and restaurants as well as the store. After parking my car, I walked towards the entrance of the store, which was on the street. To do so, I had to walk towards the driveway I came in on to park. Upon walking to the entrance, I noticed a man standing by himself smoking a cigarette. It was 1 a.m. and not normal to just see only one person standing by themselves, though I figured he was one of the patrons from one of the bars on the block taking a cigarette break. As I walked past him, he said, "Hi," to which I responded a quiet "Hi" back, but didn't make eye contact with the man. Upon passing him, I had a better look at his appearance. He had a shaved head and wore a long white t-shirt with shorts hanging past his knees. He had on a pair of sneakers accompanied by some tube socks that covered his shins. This isn't unusual to see in my town, but I was more concerned that he was sitting by himself and instantly took an interest in me as I walked past. After seeing him and continuing to walk to the store, I saw out of the corner of my eye that the man proceeded to follow behind me. When I say follow, I don't mean he coincidentally was walking behind me. He immediately followed right behind me as soon as I passed him, making a point to maintain the same walking speed. I did not know this man's intentions, but a man by himself that late at night is a recipe for trouble. As I looked down the dark and empty street, I weighed out my only options of where to go. Initially, I thought, keep walking so he doesn't know you're going to the adult store. But since it was 1 a.m. and there was no one on the street, I thought that to be more dangerous. Then I thought, just go in one of the bars. But then I thought that would give him an easier introduction to approach me. So I realized my best bet was to continue in the store where I knew it was well lit and people could see me. I proceeded to shop for what I came here for. The man entered the store behind me but hung out at the front of the store so as not to look like he was following me around. He wasn't even pretending to shop. He just sat at the front waiting. As I was shopping, I heard the man make a shh sound, which I ignored. He wasn't getting the message. He continued making that sound as I continued to shop without noticing. Eventually, I walked up to the cashier, who was completely oblivious to what was going on. I tried to whisper to the cashier, "Do you know that man, or does he work here?" The cashier asked me to repeat what I was saying, and I asked again, but still spoke in a quiet voice. Not understanding my attempt to be discreet, the cashier responded, "I can't hear you. Say it again." At this point, I felt that my cover was blown, so in a more normal tone, I told the cashier that the man in front followed me from outside and won't leave me alone. I explained my car was parked in the lot behind the store and I didn't feel comfortable going to my car. The cashier said, "Okay." The cash wrap area was an enclosed square-shaped counter to maintain distance between the staff and the customers. The cashier walked to the front by where the man was, and from behind the counter told the man to leave. He then came up and assured me that he told the man to go away, though the man did not in fact go away. He continued to stay there. Given that I didn't want him to follow me to my car, I stayed in the store and pretended like I was shopping even though I already found what I came there for. I would occasionally glance at the front to see if the man was still there, and he was. I kept going up to the cashier, explaining the man hadn't left, so he went back up to the front to talk to him. I heard the cashier say, "Enough already, just leave the store." While he was doing this, I went to the far back end of the store to remain out of sight. By the time I circled back to the cashier, I noticed the man was no longer in the store. He said the man claimed he didn't understand English. The cashier then said he pulled a baton he kept under the counter for protection, held it over his head, and asked the man, "Do you understand this?" To which the man finally left the store. I made my purchase but was still worried about walking to my car, even though I was parked in one of the first spaces when you come through the driveway. The cashier pointed at a small TV behind him that had 4 angles of CCTV footage. He assured me that the man was gone and if I saw him, I should come back in the store. He also said he will see me when I walk to the car. Even though I would have felt more comfortable with him walking me to the car, I understood he was by himself and couldn't leave the store unattended with customers. After making my purchase, I speed walked to my car. I always have my keys at the ready when walking to my car, so I promptly pressed unlock on my car remote, got in the car, placed my bag of purchases on the passenger seat, and proceeded to start the car. Once my car turned on, I took off the e-brake, put the car in reverse, and while putting on my seatbelt, I looked in my side view mirror to back out. It was at this point that I saw the same man in the side view mirror at full speed, walking right to my driver's side door. I was driving an Accord at the time, and that model automatically locks all the doors when you take the car out of park. As soon as I saw him, I hit the gas and violently pulled out of my parking space. I pulled out so fast it startled him and stopped him dead in the tracks. He was now standing right next to my driver's side door as I continued to pull out. I gave him the most serious dead stare I could because I know most predators play off the fear of their victims. The stare must have worked. As soon as he saw me pull out while staring at him, he turned his head back to the driveway entrance and proceeded to walk back to where he was standing. He had a look of defeat on his face. My face, however, was overcome with relief. I pulled out of the parking lot and took myself back home. I felt a bit of shame being by myself going out so late. I did tell my boyfriend about the incident when he came home at 6 a.m. He also concurred that me going out that late by myself wasn't the smartest thing. I'm no longer with that person but still live in the same town, though I never leave my home for anything past 9 o'clock anymore. While the town I live in isn't the most dangerous, there still are enough crimes that occur here. It's also not considered the safest. So to the man who decided to follow me at 1 a.m. with sinister intentions, let's not meet. Throw away because this is something from my past that I'm not proud of. Also, this is pretty long, but it all comes together in the end, I promise. I won't be answering any questions, but I would like to say that if you were one of the guys I tricked, I am very sorry, and I do hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. From the ages of 11 to around 17, I used to be addicted to playing MMORPGs. They were literally my life, and I considered my online friends very real, and I loved them. Except, I lied to them practically the entire time. I was pretending to be a girl, but not for the fun of it, but to target single teenage boys online for in-game currencies, gear, and whatever helped me progress through the game. Anybody who was an avid MMO gamer knows exactly what I'm talking about. Those amazing outfits you have to buy for real money. Those materials that you had to buy with real money to progress through the game comfortably and to be able to go up against the best of the best. I was addicted. I wanted all of it. Except I couldn't get all of it. I couldn't buy it. My parents wouldn't agree, nor did I have a part-time job as a teenager. I devised a plan from the ages of 13 or 14 that I would pretend to be a teenage girl and get into seemingly realistic online relationships with teenage boys and try to coax them into sending me these things. I used the names and pictures of teen girls I found on their personal profiles on places like Flickr and PhotoBucket. Usually when the boy decides to go snoop because he thinks I'm lying, he would find them and start believing it's really me. They were already too desperate. I even voice chatted with them. My voice was high-pitched even as a boy going through puberty. It was the perfect formula to trick them into liking and gifting me. I was desperate for all these in-game things and wasn't thinking straight. I never realized how much these people could get affected. On my first MMO, I tricked a boy into sending me an outfit by pretending to be his girlfriend. This boy seemed madly in love with me, and since this was my first time trying this out, I genuinely felt bad for him and wanted to tell him I lied to him. He was pretty similar to me in all aspects. He wasn't well off either, didn't work, and had a bad home life. But my idiotic self decided it would be okay for him to gift me. It won't hurt, right? I thought. This huge identity scam I created escalated from there. I tricked so many other guys, teens and possibly even adult men pretending to be teens. It was really bad and I hated it, but I couldn't stop. I needed all of these gifts in these games. This is where the story starts. When I was 16, the last guy I ever talked to was a 23-year-old Russian guy who we will call Mark. I met Mark in a very popular shooting MMO. We hung out all the time and had many mutual friends on that game. We voice chatted with a group of people multiple times on Skype while playing. I never once decided to scam him because he was a free player, meaning he never spent money on the games. He also seemed like a genuinely nice dude, but when he asked me out, I tried to take on what I considered the biggest challenge in this scam. Will I be able to get a free player to spend on a game for me? Because I always was so well liked online and many people knew who I was, and generally, I was a very quote-unquote nice girl. My ego was soaring and I knew I could do it. I accepted dating him online despite him knowing I'm a 16-year-old girl as a 23-year-old man. In the beginning, he was pretty normal. He was always trying to be sweet and romantic. We played together all the time, and he did all the lovey-dovey kisses and hugs text stuff. It was all going well. Too well. However, I noticed after a week or two that something was not right with him. He seemed very obsessive, manipulative. He always talks bad about my other friends from the game to make them unfriend me. He would always tell me they talk shit behind my back and would call them sluts, skanks, and all these horrible names. He would even send proof, which I later found out was photoshopped, from in-game text chat, which disappears so you can't ask said friend to send proof that she didn't say what she said. He absolutely despised any guy I ever talked to when we were playing in a public match together. I stupidly went along with it. I didn't want him not to trust me so I could get what I wanted. Then the perfect moment came for me to make Mark send me gifts. I had to do it. This new outfit the game introduced was too bomb to pass up. I started off by telling him the new game update was pretty cool and we talked about it for a while. He suggested that we both get the new outfit, but I told him I had no money and I totally would buy it for both of us if I could. He suggested that he steal money from his mother, a single hard-working woman taking care of 2 kids. For a second, my mind told me to let it happen. This was when I immediately snapped out of it. I felt bad and wanted out. I couldn't believe what I was doing. Was I really about to tell Mark to go steal money from his mom, who was struggling to pay bills? I couldn't let that happen. I decided to log off immediately and shut the laptop to rethink what I've done all these years. How many of these guys weren't in well-off families, but were probably using or stealing their parents' money? I couldn't stop pondering about this all day. The next day I logged back into Skype at night and was immediately slammed with walls and walls of texts from Mark asking me where I went, why I wasn't answering, calling me all kinds of names, saying that I went to talk to some other guy I know, and many similar things that you hear quote-unquote nice guys say to girls that give them a chance, then flake on them for being weird. I was sick to my stomach. I hated what was going on and I hated Mark. I tried to play it off and say my electricity cut off the entire day, but he didn't believe it. He didn't want to believe it. I immediately told him I wanted to break up with him. Things took a turn for the worse. His voice called me and I picked up. He was hysterically crying and shouting at me. I tried to remain calm and tell him I didn't want to play games anymore. I told him I was getting more depressed than I already am and felt my addiction to games wasn't helping me and that I should go out and see the world more. Which actually was all true, outside my fake persona. He started shouting at me some more, calling me all kinds of names. This 23-year-old Russian man was threatening what he perceived to be a 16-year-old girl. Everything he said started to get worse. He started talking about how I ruined his life. We got into a heated argument and I could hear him throw stuff around and break stuff. I was still crying when I told him I had to go because my parents wanted me to do something. I ended up throwing up in the garbage bin in my room. I quickly told him I had to go. I immediately quit Skype and closed my laptop. Cried in my room the entire day, realizing karma finally got me and this is what I get for scamming people. I was a mess and suddenly I passed out asleep in my bed. I didn't know how or when it happened, but it did. The next day I was unusually calm. The day went by normally. I sat in front of my laptop but didn't open it. Tried to think of a rational solution to all of this. I also didn't want somebody this upset over me. There was no rational solution to any of it. I had to say goodbye to him and block him forever, and whatever happens, happens. I opened Skype and was immediately slammed by walls of texts again. This time I didn't read anything but saw that he sent me some photos. He sent me pictures of him crying. I was sick again, but I took a deep breath and went in as calmly as I could. When he came online, I told him I'm breaking up with him. For real. Mark again told me he was really upset and threatened me if I ever dared to leave him. He just continued to threaten me again. I told him that he's being too hard. I told him he could find another girlfriend, and he still continued to threaten me. I was fed up. I tried to reason with him, and I was even on the verge of revealing I was actually a 16-year-old boy all along, but I decided it wasn't the best thing to do. I regretfully told him that he's a POS, and I hope no other woman has to go through what he did to me. Then blocked him and deleted him. Deleted my Skype and never logged back on it. I did see him online a few times in the game I played. He tried to contact me again, but I ignored him. He deleted me off his friends list in-game, and we never chatted ever again. I stopped pretending to be a girl and told all of my friends I was a boy all along, and apologized profusely. The girls felt betrayed because they really trusted me. Most of the boys who I led on felt betrayed because they liked me, but none of them made a big deal out of it in the end. I realized how much of an asshole I was at the end for even coming up with this plan, but decided I wasn't as much of a jerk as a 23-year-old man acting like an insane person front of a 16-year-old girl for trying to break off a creepy abusive relationship. Screw you, Mark, and if you're reading this, let's not meet again. So, a long time ago, I had a falling out with a friend who liked to cyber harass people she didn't like. Because I knew this, I took precautions on all of my social medias and added the two-step verification, where it would send codes to your cell phone if somebody tried to log in or change your password. Seems like a safe step, right? I never thought about it any further until a few days ago. I get an SMS text from a random number that addressed me by my full first name, which freaked me out a little bit because the spelling of my first name is pretty uncommon where I'm from. No big deal, maybe it's just an old friend who changed phones. I gave the classic, "Who dis?" back at them, to which I received an even stranger text back. "Oh my goodness, it's you. Are you 18? I have something I want to cash app you." Well, that's weird, I thought. Probably just some scam to hack my Cash App. I said again, "Who the heck is this?" and never received a text back from that number. No less than 5 minutes later, I get 3 calls and 2 spam voicemails from a different unrecognized phone number. Then a text. "Pick up the phone," with my full name. Well, that's alarming. I immediately took screenshots and had my boyfriend call from his phone, but no luck. I blocked the number and hoped that was it. Maybe 30 minutes later, I get 5 calls from a new number and a new, even more alarming set of texts. "I am a 40-year-old man and I'm in love with you. I will keep trying to reach you until you respond. I won't stop." I immediately blocked the number and called my parents. Then within 2 minutes, he made a new number and texted me again. "Wow, I just want to talk to you for 5 minutes. I'll even pay you. But after that, consider me gone." Again, blocked. I alerted my boss, then the text stopped. After work, I filed a police report and bought a baseball bat and set up some security alarms in my apartment. My first instinct was that it was a guy I recently worked with who had been fired recently for sexual harassment. One of my friends or coworkers who was good with the tech stuff changed his phone number and texted the number pretending to be me on a burner to get some more information out of him. It was a bit of a long conversation, so I'll sum it up by saying this guy basically wanted me to talk on the phone while he winked it. He called me at least 26 times and got no answer, so he stopped trying. We assumed that was the end of it. The next morning, I get a text from a new number again. He was claiming to be one of my friend's fathers. I started to freak out. Both of my parents and my boyfriend were at work, so he sent his mom over to calm me down and stay with me while I was alone in my apartment. He called my phone and she answered, and all he said in this super creepy raspy voice is, "Please," and then abruptly hung up. I was having a full-blown panic attack at this point, so she called the police department and had an officer come out to update my report. She was still texting the guy while the cop was there, and once she told him law enforcement had been contacted, his whole story changed. He said he doesn't know me or anything about me. He doesn't even live near me and means no physical harm. That he's just a lonely guy who got my phone number from Facebook and decided to harass me. I might remember this wrong, but could have sworn I had my phone number set to private, but I know I still had it up there because of the two-step verification. I recently posted something on the Facebook Marketplace, so I'm assuming that's where he found me. I have since deleted that account and changed my phone number, and nothing else has happened. I'm just posting this here, more or less as a warning to anyone who has that two-step verification set up. Please double check right now and make sure you have the most private settings possible for everything. I'm not even going to set up all that stuff with my new phone number. I'm not going to risk giving it out somewhere online. English is not my first language, and Google Translate does me dirty sometimes. The following story happened to me a few years ago. In hindsight, I was a lot more naive, and I've grown a lot since, becoming more aware of the risks of using social media without privacy settings. A few years ago, I left my home country to start my master's course and new life halfway across the world. I do not want to share the name of the country I live in now, sorry. Besides my partner, their family, and my housemates, I didn't really know anyone in the area. The first few months were quite hard. I had never lived more than a 3-hour drive from my parents, so Being 9,000 miles away from everything I'd ever known and loved was quite difficult. I found myself using social media more than ever. Facebook, Instagram, and stuff. It was a very comforting feeling scrolling through my phone and seeing familiar faces. Watching stories of friends hanging out in places we all used to visit together, getting to chat in my native language. It made me feel less lonely, and quite frankly, I enjoyed sharing pictures and stories of my new city with friends and family. It was such a low-effort way of keeping in touch, and it made me feel as if I was still a part of their daily lives. Side note, I'm not a social media influencer. I don't have a large following. Almost all people I know personally, and at the time, I followed everyone back, thinking it was some sort of unspoken internet courtesy. I mainly posted pictures of landmarks, beaches, and old buildings. Anything I thought looked interesting and that my friends back home would enjoy seeing, since where I live now is heaps different from my hometown. One day, I noticed I had a DM request from an account I didn't recognize. It read, "Hello then. Follow me?" The profile picture was nothing out of the ordinary. A black and white photograph of someone's back standing on a cliff or mountain. Initially, I thought it was a bot, but when I clicked into the profile, I was surprised by the content. Beautiful black and white film photographs of different places around the world. There were no pictures where I could make out a face, and the About Me was very simple with a camera emoji and a name. Since I liked the content, I decided to respond to the message with a "Hello." I received a reply almost instantly. They asked how I was doing, and I asked them what kind of camera they use. It was such an innocent, ordinary conversation. I thought nothing of this. The next day, I woke up to a row of notifications all from the same user. They had liked every single one of my photos, even going years back into my feed, and sent me more messages. In one, they asked how I was enjoying X, the city I had moved to not too long ago. I gave a short one-word answer and a smiley face for good measure. But when they asked in what area I was living, I instantly felt weird and decided to not keep the exchange going, so I left them unread. This caused a flood of messages from their end, now apologizing for asking, and explained that they had asked because they swear they had seen me before and wanted to know if I worked at Anytime Fitness in X, borough in my city, which I did not. Thinking this would end the conversation, I replied with a "Sorry, I think you have the wrong person. I don't work there." A few moments later, I got another message asking if I was sure. I didn't reply, so they sent another. "You wouldn't lie to me, would you?" Then another. "Where do you work?" Just one after the other. At this point, I started to get anxious. I hate confrontation and used to get very anxious over any little altercation where I might have upset someone. So I unfollowed and blocked the account. I mentioned it to one of my housemates and my partner, both of which I said it was just some internet troll with too much time on their hands, and I did good by blocking them. But after about a week or so, I received another strange DM request. The profile picture was a screenshot of a scene from a film, and the profile had one single photo of the same screenshotted image. The message read, "Why did you unfollow me?" I blocked it immediately. After this, I started receiving a wave of messages from other fake accounts on all of my social media. The messages became more and more aggressive, calling me a liar and a cunt. Then randomly, I'd get one asking me how my day was or if I had watched a certain movie before. I tried contacting Facebook and Instagram, but honestly, I don't think anything came from it, except maybe the accounts were terminated. I changed all my privacy settings to private, but still the messages continued. I was so overwhelmed and wondered why somebody would go out of their way to do this to me. I had just moved the country. Started school, was trying so hard to start over somewhere else so foreign to me. I had never experienced any type of bullying back home, and I didn't have any enemies. So who would do this? My partner suggested that I screenshot the messages and get the police involved, but back then I was so nervous to do anything that I just let it be. I figured the police would ignore a foreigner or tell me to grow a backbone, something I grew up hearing a lot. This game of blocking and deleting profiles continued until my partner, seeing how upset this was making me, messaged one of the accounts telling them to leave me alone and that they were contacting the police if they continued. The account was either deleted or blocked my partner because it disappeared and things went quiet. After a few weeks, I decided to activate my account on Facebook again and returned to Insta, hoping things had cooled down, and they had. No requests and no messages. It had been almost 2 months since the start of this whole ordeal, and I was message free. I was in a much better place. I had made some friends, was enjoying my studies and my job. The incident became nothing but a creepy memory. But then one day while I was out grocery shopping at a shopping center, 15-minute walk from my home, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. My hands were full of grocery bags, so I ignored it until I got home. When I opened the message, it was from another unfamiliar account with a black and white profile picture of just an eye. Immediately, my heart sank and my stomach started to turn. I started thinking, is this the same person after all of this time? No way. My body started getting hot and a bit shaky. I opened the message and all it said was, "Hi friend." Then they had sent a link to a clip from Back to the Future. I was confused as to why they were messaging, let alone sending a random movie clip, but then I remembered what I was wearing, a Back to the Future t-shirt. I blocked the user right away and deleted my profile, for good this time. After that day, I never heard from them again. It's been a few years since, and I still don't have an Instagram account, and I only use Facebook to keep in touch with old classmates. I never post anything personal. Occasionally, I will share a Conan clip here and there. Never figured out who was messaging me, if it was the same person, why they were doing this, and worst of all, if they had been watching me. I don't know if it was a strange prank or a pure coincidence, and in hindsight, it seems so silly how much it all got to me. But please, not to sound like an overprotective mother, be careful what you share when you tag a location and who you follow. Stay safe, everyone, and strange Instagram user, let's not meet ever.